Alrighty. Then I've stopped the recording while we're doing all this. So
Sounds good.
let me get the link. So me. Okay. All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds good to me.
All right. Is the screen, oh, what am I screen sharing now? Okay. There we go. Let me put the other screen share back up. Hey, Doug. Doug, I'm going to put up the welcome sign, and then in about 2 minutes, we'll switch over to you. We'll give the welcome, and then I don't think it'll take all of 20 minutes. So if you want to, you know, if you've got a little more than 20 minutes, that'll be fine. So, but the welcome's going to be up first, and then you guys are going to come in after that. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Perfect. All right, let me put the screen share up. Screen share. There we go. Share. 1 second. There we go. Got to send out one thing to Eventbrite right quick. And let's see. Let me mute myself here for 1 second. While people are joining and you know, going over to watch the live stream, can one of you, I just dropped the live stream link into the Slack channel, the Zeek Slack channel. Can one of you guys just see if that's working right for me, if you don't mind?
Wes, can you take that?
Yep. Let me find it real quick. What's the name of that particular channel? It's the
General.
General. Okay.
Yeah. And for right now, I'm going to remove you guys and put you back in the waiting room just while we're doing the welcome, and then I'll bring you right back over when it's time. Does that work?
Sounds good. Thanks, Amber.
You're welcome. And let's see here. All right, everybody, we're about 3 minutes after the top of the hour. Hold on one second. Welcome to Zeek and Enterprise Day. I am so thankful that everybody has been willing to join and participate in our event today. And I apologize, I've got a lot of glare, but we'll figure it out as we go today. Today is our first ever Zeek and Enterprise Day. We've got Security Onion to participate, NCC Group / Fox IT, Corelight, Sensato. Then we're going to take a short break, and then Host Integrity Systems will be up, Tensor, and Critical Path Security. So if you're wondering why we're doing this event today, let me give you a little bit of background. The Zeek project, almost every week, a couple times a month at least, gets requests for RFPs for supported Zeek solutions, for requests for how to do something that they need a supported solution for. So what we thought we would do is reach out to the community to see who has any type of enterprise or professional commercial solution built with Zeek as part of that offering, and see if people wanted to come and present to the community. And then after this, we'll create a Zeek and Enterprise page on zeek.org so that when people ask us this, there'll be an alphabetical listing of all the companies. And then people can, we'll have your boilerplate, the boilerplate that each company wants to use, the logo and a link back. And we'll also trim up this video for today and put in each company's piece of this presentation today. So you'll be on the website. So if those of you who are watching and listening today, if you're thinking, gosh, my company does that and we're not presenting, we'll be doing this again. And so please feel free to, send me your information so that we can put you in the queue for the next time. You'll also see coming out very soon the requests for participation for Zeek Week. Zeek Week this year is going to be held in Austin, Texas at the AT&T Hotel and Conference Center. It's downtown on UT's campus, and that's going to be October 13th through the 15th. So you'll see that coming up too. So if you or your organization, for those of you who are watching, would like to submit a talk, day one will be training. There's some sponsorship opportunities you'll see coming up for that. Day two will be focused on the user, so SOC professionals, and day three will be our developer track. So as we get ready for Zeek Week, as we get ready to help, start helping those in the community navigate their way through supported solutions, we're offering folks the opportunity, again, that list, Security Onion, NCC Group / Fox IT, Corelight, Sensato, Host Integrity Systems, Tensor, and Critical Path Security, all the opportunity to present to you, the community. So we're going to have some 20-minute talks. I thought my welcome would be a little bit longer, but I've trimmed it up quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to admit some of the folks who will be presenting. I'm going to Doug Burks and Wes Lambert from Security Onion. I'm going to invite John Gamble from Corelight. Looks like Nick Turley from the Zeek LT is sitting in the waiting room too. And since we have a few minutes before the actual presentations start, I'm going to invite all of them in, ask them a few questions, and then we'll get started with the presentations. So stand by as I admit a few folks. Hey, everybody. So I've just invited Wes Lambert in, John Gamble from Corelight, Wes Lambert's from Security Onion Solutions, Doug Burks is from Security Onion Solutions, and I believe Nick Turley's joining from the Zeek LT. We have a few minutes before the formal presentations start. And as I was telling folks earlier, we feel very honored to have you all join us today. And as most of you know who are in the group right now, we get requests very often for supported solutions, and I say we as in the Zeek project get, requests for supported solutions almost every week. And so this is part of our way to be able to build up a Zeek and Enterprise database or page that we can just point people to. And because of that, we were giving everybody a few minutes to speak. And Nick, I want to kind of put you on a spot because I didn't warn you that I was going to do this, but can you kind of address folks for a few minutes and let people know why this day is sort of important to the project from your standpoint?
Yeah, from my standpoint, today is really important because while a lot of people, know Zeek, or Zeek is very popular in the community, they don't always know how Zeek is being implemented in commercial products. In my particular job, especially when we were first starting out, we didn't really know what commercial support there was, who was integrating Zeek into their products, what the capabilities were, and the flexibility around that. So I'm very excited, which is why I'm participating today, to see how some of these other groups and vendors have implemented Zeek, how they're leveraging the power of the technology, and also how they're keeping core Zeek alive and keeping the community functional and participating in that. So that's my take. Sorry, I was kind of on the spot, but I hope that made sense, Amber. So yeah.
It did. I was telling folks I thought my welcome would take a bit longer, but it didn't. And since you all are in the waiting room, and when Security Onion Solutions gets ready to present here in about 10 minutes, I'll put everybody but them back out into the waiting room. So don't be offended when you get put back in the waiting room here in a second. We've got, like I said, Doug Burks and Wes Lambert from Security Onion Solutions that will be presenting in about 10 minutes. Would either one of you all, Doug or Wes, like to do the same thing, address why participating in this event was important to you all?
Absolutely. We really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of today's event. As you know, we're big fans of Zeek and the Zeek project, and we're proud members of the Zeek community. We appreciate number one, such a powerful tool, and the ability to kind of have our community join with your community and work together to empower defenders to catch bad guys. And that's really what it's all about, is trying to make sure that every organization that's out there that's ready and willing to monitor their networks is able to do so. And we want to kind of meet those organizations where they're at and kind of help them along their journey. And Zeek is a tremendous part of that.
Thank you so much for that. Wes, would you like to say anything?
No, I think I'll just pretty much echo what Doug has said there. I'm pretty much here to answer some questions today, if you guys have any questions about Zeek. So I will be in the Slack channel there. So that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for those who may not have read the email in its entirety, if you join the Zeek Slack workspace, every presenter, every organization here that will be presenting today has a Slack channel so that you can continue the conversation with them after their presentation ends, or even during the presentation. And with that, John, would you like to say a few words why it was important for Corelight to participate in today's event that may be outside of what you're going to present later today?
It's great to get together. We tend to only do this around Zeek Week, where all the vendors who are using it kind of gather together and talk to the community. So I'm glad that we're adding another touch point there. And Nothing, I don't think that anyone else hasn't already said. But just quick, Amber, to make sure I understood. So we'll be sitting in this kind of waiting room, this breakout room, and then you'll be putting the speakers into the main room to speak. And then otherwise we're kind of in the green room, so to speak here.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct. So those who are watching the live stream on YouTube, and I dropped it into the Zeek General channel, John and Maddie and Wes and Doug, everybody, if you want to kind of watch how things are progressing, you can do that from that link. And you can also let me know if something isn't, presenting correctly, because there will be a delay, a few second delay from what, us here versus what people see on YouTube. But I think everything's going well. Nobody's blowing up Slack yet. So I guess that's good. And Maddie, do you want to say anything about why it's important for you all to be joining today?
Well, hi Amber, it's really good to meet you. I don't think we've spoken before, although I feel like we've emailed each other a lot. So yeah, I mean, I guess I've been really watching the Zeek project since about 2012, and I mean, Doug used the word powerful, and it can be overused, but it's true. Like, we can find some of our most interesting and our bad things, like using Zeek. So yeah, it's a special community. It's a privilege to contribute back, and also to get to do it for a living as well. So thanks very much.
And we've also had, and we've got about 7 minutes before Security Onion Solutions takes the floor, and he doesn't know it yet, but Robin Summer has also joined in the waiting room, and I've admitted him as well. And Robin leads the technical side of the Zeek project group. He's also a co-founder of Core Light, and very active member of the Zeek LT. And Robin, to put you on the spot a little bit, can you tell folks why this Zeek and Enterprise Day is important to not only you, but the Zeek project as well? I think you missed Nick's take on it, but if you could address folks a little bit, that would be great as well.
Sure, we can see if it actually aligns with what Nick and I are saying. So I'll talk from my perspective. So I think this is, actually, I've been really looking forward to this, because it's really cool to see all these places using Zeek in their products. And I think it's something that often remains a bit hidden behind the scenes, because like companies tend to market their features, not necessarily what the technology is behind those. So shedding a bit of light on that and showing how Zeek is actually helping in achieving what these places want to build is really cool, I think. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot today. It also just, I think, gives all the companies an opportunity to actually connect to the Zeek community. So we, as the Zeek project, we keep getting requests of people asking for commercial offerings in the space, and for us, we're happy to connect people with places that might have something to offer, but we need to know about them. Ideally, we can have something that we can actually point to. So I think this Zeek and Enterprise Day will give us that collection of places we can forward interested parties or point interested parties to. So I think this is really cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for that. And just as you echoed exactly what Nick had said and others have said, we've got about 5 minutes before Doug and Wes take the floor, and people are telling me that the live stream is working as intended. So for those who are watching, if you want to share that link to your circles, or those of you who will be presenting later, if you want to share that link out with the times that you'll be taking the floor, that would be great. We had quite a few folks who registered, but now that we're live, people can go to the Zeek YouTube channel or that link that I shared earlier and watch from wherever that you are. So hopefully we'll get some more people join in throughout the day as you all share to your networks. And I don't think that there's anything else that we need to go over. So Doug, if you and Wes would like to take the floor about 4 minutes early, I'll kick everybody out of this room and let you watch it through YouTube, and we'll take it from there. Does that sound good for everybody?
Works for me.
All right. So let me put everybody back out in the waiting room for those who aren't presenting, and we'll get started. Takes me just a minute to Hopefully I don't kick Doug, you or Wes out accidentally. That would be terrible. All right, let's see. And I believe I'm going to mute myself and let you all take the floor. So up first, we have Security Onion Solutions. We have Doug Burks and Wes Lambert, who are going to tell you all about what Security Onion has to offer. If you would like to continue the conversation with them, please join the Zeek Slack channel or the Zeek Slack workspace, and you'll see the Slack channels that begin with ZIE, and those are all the Zeek and Enterprise rooms that we have for today, and they'll be up for a little while. And so with that, I'm going to be quiet, and Doug, you guys have.
Well, thank you, Amber, for that introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you all today. As I mentioned before, it's a great privilege and honor for us to be kind of working with and alongside the Zeek community to empower defenders to better monitor and defend their networks. Again, we're big fans of the Zeek project, and it's always been a big part of what we do. So we're proud to kind of give back to the community, and we're proud to be a part of today's event. So I'm Doug Burks. I'm the founder and CEO of Security Onion Solutions. And joining me today is Wes Lambert. He's a principal engineer here. And so he'll be answering questions in the Slack channel. So if you have questions as we go along, please feel free to type those into ZIE Security Onion Solutions, and Wes will provide answers as quickly as possible. We may also have some other team members joining us today in the chat. So I believe Mike Reeves, our product manager, is here, and maybe some other surprise guests as well. So again, if you have questions as we go along, please feel free to type those into the chat. All right, so what is Security Onion Solutions? Security Onion Solutions delivers appliances, professional services, and training for Security Onion, which is a free and open enterprise security monitoring platform. And we're now over 2 million downloads. So it's being used around the world for real world incident response. And just as a brief history, I started Security Onion as a free and open project in 2008. The first version was actually released in early 2009. And then later in 2009, I added Bro to Security Onion. So it's been a long-standing component of the Security Onion project for a long, long time. And over the years following that, kind of the worldwide Security Onion community grew, and more folks started asking for things like training and professional services and hardware appliances. And so in 2014, I started Security Onion Solutions as the company to provide those products and services. Fast forward to 2019, and of course, the Bro project renamed to Zeek. And so in the Security Onion project, we migrated from Bro to Zeek. And then last year, we released Security Onion 2. And this was a brand new, built from scratch, purpose-built platform specifically designed to be more scalable, more capable, and have more features for enterprise usage. So that's a brief history of Security Onion, the project, and Security Onion Solutions, the company. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the fine men and women of Security Onion Solutions. And the vast majority of these folks actually have a background in defense and blue teaming and incident response. And so, one of our big objectives as a company is to build the kind of platform that we ourselves would want to use as incident responders. So we eat our own dog food, we use our own products to monitor our own networks. So that's very important to us to make sure that we're building something that is done the right way. So let's start with kind of a problem statement. We all have an adversary problem. There are lots and lots of adversaries out there on the big bad internet. They're all trying to get into our networks at every single opportunity they have. They want to get a foothold into your environment. They want to establish some sort of command and control. They want to pivot laterally throughout your environment. They want to go after your keys to the kingdom, your confidential information, your sensitive information. That could be credit card numbers, that could be personal health information, that could be some other form of data, but they're going after those objectives, and ultimately they want to exfiltrate that information. And so, that's the problem that we're up against. And it's tremendously easy for many adversaries to walk into any organization's network that they want to. And, just as a brief example of, kind of the adversary mindset, many years ago, I worked an incident where it was very clear very early on in the case that the adversary was using Backtrack Linux, now called Kali Linux, which is a precompiled, pre-configured Linux distribution with all of the favorite red team and pen test and attack tools already ready to go at a minute's notice. And to me, that was kind of fundamentally unjust that adversaries had that kind of an advantage over us as defenders. And so, because we didn't really have kind of the equivalent blue team tool set or blue team platform at the time back in 2008. And that's really kind of one of the reasons why I started Security Onion, to try to rebalance that equation. And so this is kind of our attempt at trying to address the adversary problem. So as you can see in the diagram, Security Onion is going to monitor network traffic. And of course, a big part of that network traffic monitoring is, of course, Zeek. And so ideally, we'd like to monitor north-south traffic as it enters and leaves the network. And we'd also like to monitor east-west traffic to look for that lateral movement across the network. In addition to that, as we all know, more and more of our network traffic is encrypted. So then it becomes important to fill in those blind spots with some endpoint visibility. So we want to collect logs from your servers, from your desktops and laptops, and really get that endpoint visibility. Bring all of that data back to Security Onion and give you that holistic picture of what's happening on your network so that you can find those adversaries that are already hiding out in your network. And tomorrow, when a new adversary tries to get into your network, you can detect that as well. So we want to help you peel back the layers of your enterprise and make your adversaries cry. Security Onion is free and open software for enterprise security monitoring, threat hunting, and log management. It's really kind of the big three areas that we focus on. And it's important to keep in mind that Security Onion as a platform is a full stack. It's not just the analyst tools. It's not just the network and host data, but it's all of the infrastructure that orchestrates all of those services and makes sure that they're running properly, and everything all the way down to the operating system itself. So Security Onion manages all of that and helps you focus your time and efforts on your real job of incident response rather than spending a lot of time being a sysadmin. So let's talk about network visibility. Of course, a big component of that is the rich protocol metadata that we get from Zeek. In addition to that, we have network-based IDS alerts coming from Suricata. And for both of these components, we enable community ID, and that allows us to then correlate from, let's say we have a Suricata network-based IDS alert. We can very easily pivot based on that community ID and see what kind of Zeek logs are correlated to the same exact network stream. And that's really important because, anybody who's ever looked at an IDS alert before, the first thing you have to do is triage that IDS alert and determine, is it a false positive or a true positive? And those Zeek logs are going to give you that metadata to really help paint a more complete picture so that you can triage your IDS alert. And if it is a true positive, it helps you to understand what are kind of the consequences of that IDS alert. So it helps to fill in the gaps, and other logs as well. So let's take, for example, if you have a Windows desktop system and you've got an agent sitting on that system collecting those Windows logs, and maybe you've got Sysmon for really comprehensive Windows logging. Those logs are getting enriched with community ID as well. So we could, in effect, pivot from a Suricata alert to Zeek logs to Sysmon logs and really see what exactly happened from all vantage points, the network and the host as well. So thinking even more about network visibility, we also have full packet capture from Google Stenographer. And so, when you get to that point where you have a really kind of a confirmed alert, you have a really interesting network stream that you're looking at, and you want to see if there's maybe command and control activity, maybe data exfiltration, full packet capture is going to give you that kind of capability. And so that allows you to do things like, if you see data exfiltration, you could actually extract those files from that network traffic, and you could determine what was actually stolen from your environment. Now, as we all know, more and more of our network traffic is becoming encrypted. That's generally a good thing for privacy, but as defenders, it makes our jobs a little bit more difficult. So we kind of fill in those gaps using endpoint visibility. And in Security Onion, we integrate with 3 main endpoint agents. So you have your choice of deploying OS Query or Elastic Beats or Wazoo. And any one of those 3 will do a great job of collecting the logs off that endpoint, bringing those logs back to Security Onion for further analysis. And again, kind of giving you that one pane of glass that's going to show you both the network visibility and the host-based visibility as well. Now, if we're talking about Windows endpoints, we also integrate with things like Sysmon and auto runs. So Sysmon is going to give you that really comprehensive logging for process creation, process termination, file creation, registry modifications. And auto runs is going to give you that really good look into persistence mechanisms on those Windows boxes. So again, we can collect those Sysmon logs, those auto runs logs, and really get a good view into what's happening on those endpoints in our enterprise. So once you're collecting all of that data from the network side and the host-based side as well, you bring it back to Security Onion. What does it actually look like? Well, we built our own web interface for Security Onion 2, and it's called Security Onion Console, or SOC for short. And so if you log into SOC and you go to the alerts page, you're going to see the network-based IDS alerts coming from Suricata and the host-based IDS alerts coming from Wazoo. And the next thing you're going to want to do is triage those alerts, determine if they're true positives or false positives. And as we mentioned before, a good way of doing that is pivoting based on the community ID to see any Zeek logs or any other logs that are correlated. We make that very quick and easy using this context menu. So if you click on any alert, you get a context menu, you go to correlate, and it's going to instantly search for any related logs based on that community ID value. So again, we're big fans of not only Zeek, but community ID, and it's a brilliant contribution to the community. Now, in addition to that kind of alert-based scenario, as we all know, more and more adversaries are getting more and more sophisticated, meaning that they are better and better at evading our IDS signatures. And so threat hunting becomes an even more important part of what we do as defenders. And so we built our own hunting interface that's specifically tuned and designed for hunting. It's designed to do stacking and aggregation so that you can look for statistical anomalies and outliers. And so you start off with kind of a Lucene query in standard Lucene query syntax, and then we can add on group bys, so you can group by arbitrary fields in your data. And this makes it very quick and easy to kind of take your data and look at it from different angles and look for those anomalies or outliers in your data. We've got lots of kind of hunting queries built in So when you are in the interface, you click this drop-down box and you can choose from a very long list of predefined hunting queries. Now, again, once you find an interesting network stream, whether that's from an alert or from your threat hunting or whatever the case may be, you then want to look at that full packet capture that we talked about before that's being provided by Google Stenographer. So we built a PCAP interface, a web interface for looking at those PCAP transcripts. And so there you can see the entire stream from start to finish on a packet by packet basis. And you can kind of look at a transcript view. And so you can see that here was a Windows workstation on my network that did an HTTP GET request. Here's the web server's response, and then the files that were transferred in that HTTP transaction. So it's very powerful to have all of your alerts and Zeek logs and hunting capability and full packet capture all at your fingertips. And again, it's kind of what we would want ourselves as defenders. And so that's what we've been trying to build into our Security Onion platform. So now once you've found those interesting streams and maybe you've declared an incident, you're in the incident response phase, now it comes time to start building a case and managing that case. And so we have case management built into Security Onion. Currently, we use the Hive, and so you can pivot very easily from Security Onion console, and whether it's an alert or a Zeek log or whatever kind of log it is, we make it very easy to kind of escalate that log into the Hive to build a case based on that. And so that's where you and your fellow analysts or incident responders are going to log in and keep all of your notes relating to that case as you work that case to completion. And so, you know, that then becomes your knowledge base if you ever need to go back and refer to that case from the past. And also any indicators that you might have discovered in the process of working that case, you might want to build some automatic detection to look for those indicators in the future and alert you if that's found. And so that's what Playbook is all about. That's another web app that we have built right into Security Onion console. And again, kind of shows you that we've built this comprehensive platform to encompass all phases of the incident response process. And we've tried to build a very comprehensive tool set that helps you every step along the way. Now, all of this is great if it's running in a VM on your laptop, but what about really true enterprise deployments? We spent a lot of time making sure that Security Onion 2 was designed from the ground up to be scalable and to be able to scale up and scale out to the needs of all of the various sizes of enterprises that are out there. So you can start with a single box deployment, or you can scale up to a full distributed deployment that's going to have multiple network sensors all across your enterprise. They're going to be sending all of their logs back to your backend search nodes. And then as your needs grow, you can simply snap in additional nodes. So if you want to monitor additional segments on your network, you snap in some additional sensors. If that new sensor load creates more logs, then you can add more search nodes to your backend. You can simply snap those in and you can scale it as necessary as your enterprise visibility needs dictate. So all of that we've talked about so far is really kind of focused around the free and open Security Onion platform. But what a lot of folks in our community have been asking for is, Security Onion is awesome, but speccing out the hardware can be difficult. Making sure that I get the right CPUs, the right amount of RAM, the right kind of network cards, the right amount of storage, the right kind of storage. And so, gosh, it would be nice if you could just drop ship us an appliance that's already got the right components for the amount of network traffic that we're expecting. And it can just be a turnkey experience and save us the time of having to install Security Onion manually. So that's exactly what we built. We have designed appliances that are custom spec'd to handle the exact workloads of Security Onion at kind of standard network traffic workloads that you would expect across most enterprises. So if you come to us and say, we need to monitor a 1 gigabit per second link, we have an SOS 1000 sensor. If you tell us that you need to monitor 10 gigabits per second, we have an SOS 10,000 sensor. And so, we've already kind of spec'd out the appliances using known hardware that we know is going to stand up to that amount of traffic. And not just network sensors, but really kind of that entire enterprise deployment that we talked about. So we have the manager nodes, we have the backend search nodes as well. And we have various models of each of those to handle different sizes of enterprises. And what's really nice about Security Onion 2 is that when you log into Security Onion console, it's going to automatically recognize that Security Onion Solutions hardware, and you're going to see those hardware images in the interface itself. So you'll be able to see, this is an SOS 10,000, this is the front image, this is the back image. And so most of our appliances are standard 1U and 2U rack mount boxes, but we do have a lot of folks that are using Security Onion specifically in the military. And so they have a lot of occasions where they might go on emergency incident response. And so they need a flyaway kit. So we're now offering rapid response appliances that are more portable. And it's much easier to carry them on an airplane and get them to your destination and set them up very quickly and easily. So we've got kind of traditional on-prem 1U and 2U rack mount appliances and the rapid response appliances as well. A lot of folks have said, on-prem is great, but what about cloud environments? So we spent a lot of time building a Security Onion 2 AMI that's available both in public and GovCloud AWS marketplaces. So if you're AWS, we've got you covered there. If you're in Microsoft Azure, we've got partnerships that we can work with to deploy Security Onion in Azure. And regardless of whether you're using AWS, Azure, or even Google Cloud Platform, we support all three of those with our professional services. So a little bit more about professional services. Our customers really kind of ask us to, give them that private support, that priority response, help them with architecture planning, doing that remote assistance if something breaks. And so we do all of that in our professional services work. And so finally, we have training. We have customers that come to us and say, what's the quickest way to get spun up with Security Onion? And so, you can start off with our free on-demand training. That's 2 hours. It's on our YouTube channel. You can find that on our website. And then moving on from there, we have our premium on-demand training. We have 2 different classes there, and those are at least 3 hours a piece. And then you move up to our premium instructor-led classes, and those are multi-day training classes, very comprehensive. They've got labs, they've got real-world case studies, and that reinforces all that material. You get printed course materials, and we've got 2 full classes there and more classes on the way later this year. So we've really tried to provide products and services around the Security Onion platform, again, to help to empower defenders to monitor and defend their networks. So you can find us at securityonion.net. You can download the free and open platform today, play around with it. You can find, we've got some very comprehensive documentation out there. We've got all those links on the left-hand side. And again, Security Onion Solutions, we provide products and services around that free and open platform. So we've got the enterprise and response-ready appliances. We've got the training and professional services. And if there's anything that we can do for you, we'll gladly help you to peel back the layers of your enterprise and make your adversaries cry.
Doug, thank you so much for that presentation. And if you'd like to continue the conversation with Security Onion Solutions, then pop over to the Zeek Slack workspace and join the Zeek in Enterprise. It starts with ZIE_security onion solution. So they'll be over there waiting and ready to take your questions and continue the conversation. Up next, we have NCC Group, and Maddie, I believe it is Maddie Morowitz, will be joining us. Let me invite them in. Oops. All right. Maddie, thank you so much for joining us today. And Maddie is with the NCC Group / Fox IT. And with that, Maddie, the floor is yours.
Hi, Amber. Thanks very much. Just to check out, are you able to see my screen?
No. Try to share your screen again. There we go.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Cool. Well, as I was saying earlier, it's really nice to be here. In this very kind of short talk, I'm just going to give an overview of how we add value to Zeek, and going to talk a little bit about machine learning, which I'm a data scientist by background and by day job, and it's very close to my heart. And we love Zeek at NCC and at Fox. It does a lot of great things, but also this is a little bit challenge back to the community. It doesn't do everything, and there is a lot of other things that it can do, and especially within the world of online algorithms and the alerting that you can actually get out of it, we think there's a lot more that you can improve and do. So we're just going to sort of lift a little bit on that and give some insight into it. So Fox IT, for those who don't know, is what NCC Group is called in Europe, just because it's quite a well-known brand. NCC Group is a global company. Do get in contact with me via the Slack if there's any questions. I am not on the commercial side, so this might not be quite as slick as Doug's presentation. Yeah, if you do have commercial questions, then there's an email address there to get in contact with. So Liam Stevenson is your man. We also just published a blog on Monday from the data science team. Just again, it's going to be some overlap with here, some differences on how we detect suspicious activity. So NCC, we do global consultancy. We do all the things that you would sort of expect within our detection and response world. Again, we do lots of stuff. Find out if you want more interest. If you want more detail, by all means, check out our website. And within all of that, we have network sensors. So our blinky boxes, which can go into networks and start collecting data and obtaining Zeek traffic. We don't just run Zeek on our boxes. We also use Suricata. And in fact, historically, that's where our strengths have been. So although we've had a role on the governance side of Zeek in the past, and there have been some great talks from previous Foxes like Hyun on quantum detection, which I very much recommend. Actually, a lot of our stuff is more historically it's been around signatures, so how we do byte and string matching. We've got real strengths in incident response and both in red teaming, and using sort of the reverse engineering understanding that we have to look at attacker tooling, tear it apart, and really create very timely signatures on that. However, I mean, as I'm sure a lot of people will know, listen to this, signatures don't find everything, and increasingly, and actually as a data science team, we were able to measure it. We found that we were missing more and more things. So we run Zeek on the boxes as well, and we only started doing this very recently. So if you're one of our original, a current customer, and you're interested in this talk, and you're interested in how we go about doing it, then do get in contact, and we'll definitely prioritize you to make sure that you get this added onto your box as well, and there's no charge in that. So Zeek for us, there's a lot more logging that comes through. As data scientists, we can really use those logs to create a lot better alerting, much more improved alerting. And we find things that we have been missed by signatures. I think also key to our approach is we use like incremental learning, and it's a huge topic, and I'm not going to do it justice here, but essentially it is a way of using online algorithms so that as data comes in, we create calculations very, very quickly. And what that enables us to do is to reduce the time to detection down to sort of milliseconds, rather than a lot of the kind of approaches to machine learning and Zeek are more kind of a batch style. So you collect the logs, you then go away, you do some sort of train test splits, you then put the model into production. And I'll go through why there's problems with that. There's two sides to how we use incremental learning. One, we try to actually replicate analyst investigation. So we put ourselves into the human, and we try, or into the human mindset, and we try and actually think, well, having observed these certain conditions, what does that mean? I won't go into any more detail on that. I will expand on how we use a sort of more classical ML approach, where actually the aim is to like replicate an analyst intuition. So the way that kind of for me that I define a true positive is if we create an alert and an analyst looks at it and they go, yeah, that's weird. So a different sort of model. And that classical ML approach really is deriving features from Zeek logs as they're created, doing modeling on top of that data. And again, it's sometimes it gets quite, there's lots of kind of layers to that, and then eventually resulting in an alert. So how do we add value to Zeek? Well, in a couple of ways. I think it's important to note that we do like device-centric modeling. So we just map IPs to host names, and different couple of ways we can do that, either through sort of like reverse DNS or through Kerberos logs or through DHCP. We do passive fingerprinting. So for asset classification, it gives us a good understanding of what servers, clients, domain controllers, Raspberry Pis, etc. And on top of that, we do, or where I really want to focus in the next couple of minutes is how we do additional features for ML modeling. And I'm just going to give you a quick example of the X509 log, where it's really useful to actually understand the age of the certificate. We apply incremental learning, and then we also have a much more complicated, I guess is the word for alerting framework. What it does is it gives us levers, and those levers help us do better detection. We also integrate kind of very quickly with cyber threat intelligence collection, and we do our own, well, we have many of our own streams of CTI, and they are quite innovative, and they help a lot. And we also have a lot of innovative techniques around responding to a significant instance. So, for example, on our GitHub repo page, you can look at a PyBeacon. So once we've actually identified, badness, what we can actually then do with it, and things like piggybacking on beaconing to actually enable, a better understanding of who that adversary is. And it's great. So we find badness using this approach, and like just as a one I'm allowed to share with you, here's an example of how we detected Cobalt Strike. And on kind of in this particular alert, you can see a couple of features. So there is a SSL beaconing score, which we calculate through incremental learning techniques. There's a remote ASN, and underneath that there is a calculation on what makes an unusual ASN. There's also a calculation on the external domain rarity, and there was also the use of jar3s. And jar3s, for those of you, I'm sure pretty well known in the community now, but hats off to the guys at Salesforce who created it. Essentially, it's a fingerprinting technique on TCP connections, or sorry, TLS connections. Great. So Zeek is fantastic, and it's wonderful. To do a lot of the incremental learning stuff, though, we actually step outside of Zeek and we move into Python, and we can talk about that and we can argue about that. Hopefully later in the year when we meet face to face. But particularly, I want to give a shout out to another open source library that I work with, which is River, and which I contribute to. And essentially, it's the scikit-learn for online and incremental learning. And the real, why does it work so well with Zeek? Well, Python dicts are first-class citizens. So you can really do dictionary manipulation very, very quickly, and that helps a lot. The other thing that I really want to mention from River is actually underneath it all is a very simple principle, which is if you can do an online, calculate an online mean, and if you can calculate online variance, you can do a lot of things to create online ML algorithms. So do check out that repo as well on GitHub and be inspired. And the advantages of the approach are significant. So one, it's timeliness. Doing modeling in this way, we're not waiting minutes or hours. Like it happens, in near real time. It feels instantaneous. There's also an ability to adapt to concept drift. So when you see something, I'll just give you a good example of that. When the pandemic struck and more home workers, you would have seen a shift to more traffic probably coming from your VPN server. Well, if you're doing like volumetric modeling, like within an environment, actually you need a model that kind of identifies that and then adapts to the new norm. Using other kind of machine learning techniques, you kind of have to take your model offline, retrain it, and then put it back into production, which is slow. And there's a lot of architectural impact as well. You can do this stuff with a consistent amount of memory, so you don't need to have lots of data saved persistently. By all means, if there are any questions, this is thing I love talking about, and there are some links there if you want to start diving in deeper, just sort of scratching the surface there. Within Zeek itself, we use streams, and there are a lot of different ways of doing it. I am very interested to see where Zeek Broker is going and the work that Dominic is doing there. But you could also equally just use like a pub subsystem, or within Apache there is an ecosystem of tools like Kafka and Flink that facilitate that. For us, for efficiency and security purposes, we created our own way of streaming Zeek logs, and it's very useful. Here's some code, so stick with me. This is an example of like the kind of feature extractions that we're talking about. And in the X509 log, one of the things we find very interesting is the not valid before, which gives you an indication of the certificate time. Well, what we do is actually use that to calculate like how old the certificate is. And that age is relative to the network time. Why is that important? Well, a lot of malicious software actually has very newly registered certificates. So in terms of like classification models, it's a feature that becomes significant. So I hope there's some code there, and I can share that later as well. So that's it in Zeek. There's also a way of doing it in Python. I won't talk through that, but if I share this later, then that might help some people understand what's going on. Another kind of like example of feature extraction, and this is in the blog if anyone wants to dive in more detail, is jar3 hash rarity. And rather than going through the code, you can kind of go through the blog. I kind of want to show you the output of the code. And essentially it's this, that you will have a stream of data where on a particular jar3 hash, as it's seen, it's given an outputted score. So within the sort of things like 70 million jar3 hashes that have been pumped into it, we can actually get a sense very quickly of how rare that jar3 hash is, and that's important because it gives rarity is an indication of unusualness and of weirdness, and when we begin to combine it with other things, that it can help us find badness. So the kind of the case that's given here, we're looking at this is a made-up jar3 hash, by the way. This is just dummy data. How many times has it been seen within and again, I'm doing it kind of going looking over historic data, but in reality, in production, this just runs in real time. How many times has it been seen? And we can see that it's been seen nearly 4,000 times in the last 3 months. And then you can actually observe like what that current rarity is. And from the first time it was seen, so essentially novelty detection where it's 100% rare, all the way through to the nearly 4,000 time it's been seen. And actually, by at that point, it's really only considered about 10% rare. And again, using online algorithms, over time, my priority is given to new things. So the more data that you see, the more or less important output can become. So creating features really, really important, and there is a lot more that Zeek can do to achieve with that. Finally, in this final section, it's all very good, like having weirdness, but actually we want to move to badness. And here in this kind of next code section, what we are using is the Mahalanobis distance. He was a great guy, went to a really good university, and it really gives us the ability to look at multivariate data and see how, like, within each of those features that we're seeing in real time, like what is a single like rarity score that is coming out of it. So in the synthetic data here, you'll see that there are 4 columns. There's the hash rarity, the domain rarity, ASN rarity, and the age of certificate. And is it less than 30 days? And that's just that's 0 false and 1 true. And then putting it through the model, in this case, there's 4 dimensions. Actually, we get a single like probability of an outlier score. And yeah, there it is. Very nicely, our outlier score is at 99, which is almost as rare as it can get. So that was very, very quick. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy talking about this stuff. So I hope you get to present some more stuff in the future. How this all kind of gets worked into our commercial package, then by all means reach out, because I haven't spent a lot of time doing that, or contact Liam Stevenson. I hope it has whetted your appetite, maybe even inspired you, and thank you very much.
Maddie, thank you so much for the presentation. And I'm sure folks would like to know more about NCC Group. And if you want to continue the conversation with Maddie, please pop over to the Zeek Slack workspace and join ZIE_NCC_group. Maddie will be waiting there to answer any of your questions. And with that, up next, we have John Gamble with Corelight. And let me bring him into the room. Maddie, thank you again. All right, John, thank you so much for your willingness, yours and Corelight's willingness to present today. And with that, the floor is yours.
Great. Can you hear me, Amber?
Sure can.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, really pleased to be here amongst all these great vendors that are leveraging this open source technology, of which I'm a huge fan. I've been at Corelight for 4 years. I'm Corelight's Director of Product Marketing, and I want to talk to you a little bit about Corelight's commercial offerings today. But before I do that, maybe just a little bit of backstory about who Corelight is. So I've been here 4 years, but the history extends beyond that. So in 2013, Corelight was incorporated originally as Browalla, which was a bit of a pun on koala and bro, as I understand it. And it was founded by Vern Paxton, who is the Zeek's kind of inventor back in the 90s when he first kind of created the project at Lawrence Berkeley, and Seth Hall and Robin Summer, who are 2 kind of key open source contributors to the project. And as I understand it, the original intent was to, as potential way to subsidize the open source project, because there were some grants that had lapsed. And so for a few years, it was largely a consultative service offering under the banner of Browalla, helping open source deployments, configure, tune, and manage open source Zeek. And then in 2016, there was a name change. Browalla changed its name to Corelight, and also the team released its first product, which was a 1U sensor, a 10 gig Zeek-based sensor. In 2017, the company Corelight raised its first round of venture capital. And since then, and that's kind of right when I joined the company, it's been a really fun ride and growth trajectory. Today, we've got, I think, some 200 plus clients, customers globally speaking. We're about 200 employees spread around the world as well. And we continue to deliver Zeek-based solutions to the enterprise market. And we've built technology that not only supports Zeek, but we've extended our support beyond that to Suricata now, which was mentioned earlier in this call today. And we continue to innovate on top of the technology and deliver insights that I like to think of as N+1, where our team is saying, hey, what's Zeek capable of and what can we develop on top of that to push this even further in our enterprise offerings? And I'll just a quick note here. Corelight, of course, many of the employees that work here are instrumental in the open source project, and some of them serve on the leadership team. And as a company, we're really deeply committed to the open source project. And I've seen that over the past 4 years since I've worked here. We devote approximately 10% of our R&D towards open source. So we have full-time engineers on staff who are committed to developing and contributing back to the open source project. And that's not including, healthy sponsorships of open source kind of community, whether that's Zeek Week or the Zeek package contest that we've been sponsoring, because we really, feel that the success of this project is tied to the success of the community. And that includes, the vendors using it and the customers and open source users as well. And so I'm really proud to work for this company because I think, we really have a strong commitment to open source in our heritage, and we continue to show that with every new year in the company. So let's talk a little bit about some of the products and capabilities that Corelight can offer. First, I just like to frame it, we think about Zeek as a journey, and I get to talk to a lot of open source users, and it's always fun for me to find out where they are in this journey that you see here on screen. And it's somewhat chronological in this order, but typically, someone gets started with Zeek, they download it, they might experiment with it in their lab, a single sensor deployment, they're just starting to familiarize themselves with the logs that Zeek generates. And then you get all the way to the end and you find users that have just taken the extensible capabilities of the platform, Zeek scripting and custom integrations with other systems, and just done some really incredible kind of customized things with Zeek. And then everywhere in between. And Corelight's aim with our commercial offerings is to help customers who are at every step of the journey not only take advantage of the value of what they're looking for in their particular stage of kind of Zeek maturity, but also get to that next stage if that's something that they desire as well. And so we have a lot of commercial kind of value propositions built around those things. It's something like, fleet management, right, is a great feature that Corelight offers that a lot of our customers love. In the open source world, that's typically a command line interface kind of, management proposition. If you've got a bunch of sensors, a cluster of open source sensors, totally doable, but you gotta love command line interface, and it can get tricky at times. And so we've built a beautiful pane of glass for multi-sensor deployment environments where customers can really easily configure, tune, and kind of policy manage their sensors, locally and globally. And it's a great example of, a capability we've built in our commercial offering that can help, that customer that's more in the middle stage where they're kind of multi-sensor deployment. So our product line is sensor-based, Zeek-based sensors. We have sensors that can support cloud environments. So the 3 major cloud platforms, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. We have sensors that can be deployed in VMware and Hyper-V environments. We also have a binary sensor for containerized environments, or it can kind of run flexibly in Linux-based environments. And then, of course, we have a range of appliance-based sensors from the AP200 all the way to the AP5000. These are all 1U sensors. They are kind of capacity sized. And so the AP200 is a 2 gigabit per second nominal capacity sensor for Zeek-based traffic analysis. And then all the way on the other end, the new big sister of the group that we just announced last quarter is the AP5000, which is a 1U sensor that we've seen in tests, deliver in excess of 100 gigabits per second in a 1U, Zeek-based sensor, which is quite an accomplishment. And performance is a big reason a lot of customers choose to come to Corelight for a commercial help as well, because you can get a lot of power out of, especially our physical appliance-based sensors in a very small form factor. And I mentioned, we started with Zeek and we branched out beyond that in our development, and we support Suricata as well on those appliances that I just mentioned. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that works and what that looks like for customers. And of course, you can manage all of these sensors in your environment with the fleet management capability that I mentioned earlier. I like to think about kind of the logging, the file extraction, and the scripting capabilities of Zeek. If I'm describing it to somebody who's brand new to the technology, that's kind of how I break up the key functionalities of Zeek. And with Corelight, I like to think that we can help you get the full power of those core capabilities of the open source, because what I often find in conversations with open source customers is that they make compromises compromises that they feel are unavoidable, but nonetheless they exist. And those are compromises like not using Zeek's file extraction capabilities because they can't, turn it on without, hurting the performance of their logging capabilities. And so they would rather preserve the logging capabilities because that's their key use case. And they just don't turn on file extraction, which is a shame when that happens. And that's a great example of something Corelight can help a customer with. We've done a lot of work, our engineers have done a lot of work about how to optimize Zeek's file extraction capability. And so just one example of that is deduplication. So if you're using a Corelight product and you're extracting files, we're not going to be extracting that same PDF or that same large video file hundreds of times. If we see it on the network, it's deduplicated. So that's just one example of where we can kind of have cost savings on a performance perspective and really support really high-end, really high throughput file extraction while full logging is enabled. And we've seen this with customers who have deployed in very large throughput networks and have turned on Zeek logging and file extraction at the same time with our product and been able to do both. And lastly, with the Zeek package side of the house and Zeek scripting capability, and I'll show you a little bit more detail, we've curated some of the best hits from the open source community, like the JA3 script that was previously mentioned, a perennial crowd favorite, a really powerful script, and one that we've preloaded on our sensors. So we've saved customers just that extra step of going to GitHub and downloading it, installing it themselves. But we've also gone beyond that, and we've built a lot of proprietary Zeek scripting technology in our product that takes the kind of the native capability and extends it into different realms, specifically around encrypted traffic analysis capabilities, and most recently around C2 detection capabilities as well. And so those are proprietary Zeek packages that Corelight's research team has developed in partnership with our customers and delivered back into our commercial offering as well. So I won't spend too much time on this slide. I think I've covered a lot of these points, but why do customers come to Corelight for a commercial Zeek-based solution? Typically, it's around ease of use and deployment. We can get you up and running very quickly in a lot of environments with our products. It's for performance reasons. We can deliver high-grade Zeek performance for high throughput networks. It's for the management capabilities that we offer in our fleet management console. It's also for the Corelight insights that are proprietary to our commercial offering as well. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail about some of those in a second. It's also for support, and I would be remiss not to mention support. I get to talk to our customers as a product marketer, and it's just a joy to hear customers who are just thrilled with the support that they get from a security company, which isn't always the case. I've worked in security my whole career, and security vendors in non-open source spaces especially don't always treat their customers the best. And I really am proud of our support team who has just a wealth of Zeek expertise and Suricata expertise to help our customers up to and including I've heard of customers saying that some of our team found issues they didn't even realize they had yet and fixed it for them proactively. And I've even seen Vern himself jump in on a ticket before to help with a troubleshooting question. So it's a really responsive team with a deep well of expertise that really for many of our customers who have converted from pure open source deployments to our commercial offerings is one of the key differentiators there for us. From a deployment perspective, if you're familiar with Zeek, this isn't a particularly novel slide. You understand that Zeek is an out-of-band deployment that feeds off packet brokers or tapping infrastructure. Corelight, of course, supports all of Zeek's native capabilities in this respect and mirrors Zeek's deployments in this respect. And notably, what I'll call out on this slide is just that we've done a lot of work in our commercial offering on the integration side with the vendors that you see it right? Splunk and Elastic, for example. Our team has done the data schema mapping work to ensure that the flow of Zeek logs out of your environment into, say, your Splunk instance is seamless and conforms to the data formats of those platforms. And we've done a lot of work there to differentiate ourselves, because in the open source world, it's totally doable. It's just extra work that a customer has to take on to basically manage those data fields and make sure that the integration that they've manually connected is working and flowing. And with Corelight, it's more or less a one-click proposition. You can set up a Splunk export from Corelight in truly a matter of minutes. And you'll be off and running with your Zeek data in those environments. Data filtration or data filters is another commercial kind of differentiation for Corelight. We've done a lot of work to think about how to better enable customers to control their data flows that Zeek generates, because Zeek, incredibly powerful tool, it does generate quite a lot of data, and that can be tricky to manage at scale and can be tricky to manage with enterprise licenses of various SIM and analytics platforms. And so we've added capabilities into our commercial offerings that are proprietary to Corelight, and one that I'll call out here that's pretty neat that a lot of customers appreciate is a data reduction mode, where basically we have, if you can think about it, put some of the Zeek logs on a diet, if you will, and remove some of the duplicative fields from some of the logs. And we found, working with customers, that it satisfies the vast majority of their use cases, but can reduce their overall data footprint by up to 30 to 50, even 50% we've seen in some cases. But conservatively, around a 30% reduction in total data volume, which means you can get the same Zeek evidence that you need downstream, but in a much smaller data footprint, which can save you, of course, in SIM licensing costs and processing speed as well. So that's just one example of a unique Corelight filter. And then on the left-hand side for input, traffic shunting is a capability we offer on our two high-end appliances, the 3000 and 5000 appliance sensors, where you can choose to shunt from the NIC large flows that you don't need to process. For example, in a DMZ environment, customers have used this capability to shunt large research loads, multi-terabyte or petabyte files that basically are the same file hash, multi-terabyte file that's being passed around between campuses. They don't need to spend Zeek energy processing those because they've seen them before, and they can shunt those flows and save processing power on the sensors. Now, I mentioned we've gone and extended, kind of taken the extensibility of Zeek's platform and scripted custom proprietary insights to Corelight's platform. But of course, we've also curated some of the best open source developments as well, because we recognize how powerful they are, customers love them, and we've baked them right into the product. So, those are scripts like the MITRE Bazaar script that Mark Fernandez developed over at the MITRE organization, or the JA3 script that was mentioned earlier on this call by the three gentlemen who were originally at Salesforce developed. These are just incredible, open source, insights, and we want to keep those front and foremost for our customers, and of course give credit where credit's due to the open source community. But we've just done the extra step of preloading it into the product to save people who may be newer to Zeek the time of figuring out how to configure and download that from GitHub. But we also have added some of our own unique insights as well. And so we have what we call collections, which is how we group our Zeek packages and our products. And the core collection is the core open source hits, but we've also added some Corelight proprietary ones as well that you see there in green. That I mentioned there on the right, the data reduction capability and traffic shunting. Those are Zeek package based capabilities that we're delivering in our product. We also have a deep and rich series of Corelight proprietary insights around encrypted traffic. So of course we are including the best hits of the open source world in the JA3 and hash fingerprinting capabilities. But we also have dozens and dozens of Corelight insights as well around RDP, SSH, and SSL traffic that were developed by Corelight's research team. This is a team of a dozen or so top security researchers led by Vern Paxson, and they work in close collaboration with Corelight customers who participate in a special program we offer called Polaris, whereby we are giving customers the ability to expose their production traffic in a safe and protected manner to our researchers, who get to securely monitor in their local environments and understand how to push the boundaries of traffic analysis and develop proprietary insights. And so that's what they've done. And this is a great proof point example of that team's work under Vern's leadership, where they've developed really amazing insights, I think, that don't require break and inspect, that take Zeek's scripting capabilities, that take Zeek's native encrypted traffic parsing capabilities and extend it to something like being able to tell a customer on this SSH connection that this is a believed client keystroke occurring over this connection, as opposed to a machine-to-machine connection. That's a great example of an insight delivered in Corelight's encrypted traffic collection. And then most recently, we introduced Corelight's C2 collection, which is 50 plus insights and threat detections based around C2 activity. And I've grouped them here according to these kind of 5 categories here. So it's a group of detections built around domain generation algorithms, which of course are a popular tool used in C2 to rapidly rotate off domains to avoid signature matching. So we have a series of Corelight insights and detections built around finding DGA activity. We also have a set of insights built around detecting and surfacing activity related to both DNS and ICMP tunneling, which of course are favored protocols for C2 communications, given how noisy and infrastructure critical they are, and often uninspected or routed around key security kind of controls, just because they're so critical to business. And lastly, a series of detections around C2 built around known toolkits that communicate over HTTP for C2 collection, as well as a set of behavioral detections that are mapped to the MITRE ATT&CK framework that look for behavior related to C2 communications over HTTP. And lastly, a set of insights built around Meterpreter, popular open source exploit toolkit, and those series of detections can help locate the C2 activity related to those toolkits. I mentioned Suricata. We've extended that support for not just to Zeek, but now in the last year in our commercial development, we are now adding support for Suricata. And I love to talk about this because I think our engineers did a clever thing here. In the open source world, typically Zeek and Suricata are statically pinned and kind of separate, distinct technologies, which of course they are. And then you're basically assimilating them downstream in a SIM and correlating between the two data sets. And while you might deploy them on the same hardware, they kind of operate as two independent tools. And with our integration of Suricata, we've actually natively embedded the Suricata alerting output into the Zeek data format, which gives customers a lot more control over the forking, filtering, streaming, and analysis downstream. It saves simple things like pivoting from a Suricata alert to a Zeek log. We've removed this step in the open source world where you would need to do that via community ID pivot. We've just embedded the Zeek UID into the Suricata alert itself. So it's one less click to pivot over to the logs you want. But there's also performance gains to be had here with the integration that our engineers has developed, because it's actually a dynamic kind of workload assignment that helps both of these tools scale and parallelizes the workloads. So we can get really high performance in a 1U format from both of these tools that typically exceeds what we see in the open source deployed world. Fleet management, I mentioned and covered. I want to be respectful of time here. I think I've got about 2 more minutes. We've got a lot of great capabilities in our fleet management console. This is the dark mode, popular UI design these days. But you can see here that you can manage multi-form factor sensors that Corelight offers in a single pane of glass, and you can manage things like role-based access control, but also create custom policy templates. So let's say you have a set of packages, Zeek packages, that you really want to deploy in a certain part of your environment. Well, you can create a policy around that, and then the next time you bring on a new sensor for a new environment, you can actually just apply that policy to those sensors, so those packages will be installed. Simple things like that add up in total to provide a really powerful management capability in a single pane of glass. I mentioned support. We offer standard support included with every Corelight subscription, so every Corelight customer gets support, and if they need that 24/7 1 hour SLA for P1s, they can upgrade to enterprise support as well. But there's a lot of great features, and support is one of the big reasons that customers often come to Corelight from an open source deployment. I like to think about one of the great value propositions we can offer the open source community is we love this technology, you love this technology, but we can save you time, and you can reinvest the time you would have otherwise spent on the open source using the open source outputs, using the logs, investigating, building threat hunting programs, doing custom scripting to integrate Zeek with tools in your environment. Those are the kind of activities that we see a lot of open source customers wanting to do, but again, often compromising because just the responsibilities of their job plus the open source management is exceeding their bandwidth. And so they don't have time to go and build these advanced use cases. And so a lot of customers come to us because of the opportunity cost of their time and love that they can buy Corelight, deploy it quickly, and start using the data in their environment instead of having to manage it. So if you're interested, corelight.com, www.corelight.com, or you can reach out to us at info@corelight.com. We have POCs readily available, and it's pretty easy to get you set up in a POC environment if you're interested in testing it in your lab or your production networks. So don't hesitate to reach out. And yeah, I'm here for questions if you have them in the Zeek Corelight Slack channel. So I'll be watching that channel during today's session as well. If you've got questions there for me, happy to answer them. So with that, I'm at time. And Amber, I will turn it back to you.
John, thank you so much for your presentation. And again, if you'd like to continue the conversation with John and others from Corelight, you can join it's ZIE_Corelight in the Zeek Slack channel. Up next, we have Sensato and we have John Gomez. Let me admit him. All right, John, welcome to Zeek and Enterprise Day. And the floor is yours to tell folks about what you all do as it relates to Zeek.
Great, thank you. I assume you can see my screen and good to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for taking time. Truly, truly appreciate all the work, Amber, you've done to get this together, and can't say thank you to you enough, and as well as the Zeek community and all the support you guys have given us over the past couple of years, and being tolerant of our silly questions on Slack and all the other things, but you've really been a great organization to work with. With that, my name is John Gomez. I'm the CEO and founder of Sensato. I'm gonna give you a little background on who we are. You probably haven't heard of us before, and then we'll get into kind of the platform. I have a lot to cover with you, so I'm gonna go a little bit quickly, and then if there's something you'd like me to clarify or follow up on, we'll get you some emails and contact information. We started back in 2013 as a critical infrastructure focused cybersecurity firm, meaning we work specifically, typically within critical infrastructure, but that doesn't mean that we don't work outside the critical infrastructure sector. I'll talk a little more about what we do, but aside from our software platform, we also do advisory services like pen testing and risk assessments and tabletops and incident response. And much of what we learned in doing that has ended up in our platform and kind of feeds our creative side of what we should do and do next. We also are an ISAL, or a cross-sector ISAL for critical infrastructure. So we kind of provide threat intelligence and best practices on incident response and some other services to a variety of different critical infrastructure sectors. We also have a memorandum of understanding with the FDA around medical device security, incident response, and threat intelligence. So if there were attacks against medical devices here in the United States, we typically do get involved, typically in the first 72 hours to try and formulate what that response should look like and develop proof of concepts and things of that nature. Ultimately, all of this kind of brings us to what we call our full stack solution. At the very bottom here, you'll see Sensato Nightingale, which is what we're going to talk to you about, and where Zeek kind of comes into the equation, which is our software platform. We also, on top of that, have what we call a cybersecurity tactical operations center. It's kind of like a SOC, but actually does more than a SOC. I won't get into that today. And then we have this concept of widgets, which are template policies and procedures and best practices. Typically, most of our clients deploy our entire full stack, but we also just sell Nightingale as a standalone product. With that, let me talk a little bit about how we kind of came across Zeek. I was fortunate enough to attend a BroCon event. It was actually the last one before the name change, and was really blown away with not just the technology and what it could do, but also the people and the openness of the community. And that really kind of drove us to, as back then when we did this, we actually were just starting the development of our Nightingale platform and decided that Zeek should be a cornerstone of what we do. I could go on and on about Zeek, would love to, but the clock is ticking and I want to be respectful of people's time. So I want to talk a little bit about Nightingale, which is our software platform, and kind of the thesis of how we approach the world and what we're trying to solve and do. Just some quick numbers for you, and you may already know these things, but according to Gartner, most organizations worldwide, regardless of industry, deploy between 16 and 20 different cybersecurity software solutions for a variety of different reasons. And I'm sure if you think about it, you probably have a variety of different products that you're using or rely upon. Interestingly enough, Gartner also found that across the world and across their client base and analytical base, only 23% of organizations actually fully deploy the solutions that they have. Meaning that in most cases they'll deploy it, but it's not truly maintained. They don't keep doing training on it. They don't really reach the vision of that product. And so we thought that was a challenge that we wanted to step up to. And that's kind of one of the angles of what we look at when we're thinking of Nightingale. So Nightingale is a fully integrated platform, and I'll give you a quick kind of overview of the architecture of it and how it works, and then we'll get into some of the feature sets and again, specifically how Zeek works into that. So we are what we would consider a hybrid solution. We have appliances that can be either physical or virtual that get deployed to a client's infrastructure. And then those appliances talk back to the Nightingale cloud. And then typically you interact with those appliances through the cloud. So basically everything you do with those appliances can be managed from anywhere in the world. We'll talk a little more about that architecture in a bit. We are deployed on Microsoft Azure. And again, as I mentioned, we have a variety of different appliances that get deployed into the client environment. I'm not going to go into each of these in the interest of time, but we'll touch on them a little bit. Another thing to know about us is we are multi-tenancy out of the box. So we can handle really complex organizational structures. We also have the ability, because some of the work we do, to what we call shear off a version of our product. So if somebody said to us, hey, we need a non-multi-tenant environment, we need it to be completely dedicated just to us, we can do that. And so there's ways that we can provide just a completely segregated environment for our platform. Ultimately, day to day, what we're trying to do is really help organizations comply with best practices and regulations as best as possible, detect threats, and obviously respond to those. And the idea behind what we're doing is trying to bring all three of those things into a single platform. And we're very transparent that, hey, if you go buy a single point solution, chances are that single point solution will do more things than we do. But with time, we believe we will get there. And the second thing to kind of keep in mind is, again, what Gartner said, even if you buy a single point solution, chances are you're only deploying 20, 30, 40, or 50% of the entirety of that solution. What we try to do is say, okay, what are the most important feature sets that we think need to be deployed, and make it really easy for you to get those things deployed in your environment. So in keeping with that vision of comply, detect, respond, Nightingale out of the box has 3 modules. All of these modules are activated the moment that you deploy the platform. There is no configuration. There is no, well, I don't want your compliance, I want your detection. What we typically tell clients is if you don't want to use something, just don't click on it. The inverse of that is we don't have any crazy weird pricing where you get charged extra if you want the incident response tools versus the compliance tools. Underlying all of that is what we call Nightingale Connect. And we believe that there are investments in cybersecurity tools. So Nightingale Connect is an API that you can interact with from your tool sets or from anything you have. We also allow for the integration of syslogs and custom logs. So typically, if you deploy Nightingale platform, you can create a very compelling common operating picture. And one of the practices we have is if we do an integration for a client, we typically don't charge for that integration, and then we make that integration available to any other client that's using our platform. So it almost becomes somewhat of a shared community of integrations versus you having to roll your own integration. So one of the concepts we have within Nightingale is this concept of pulses. And pulses really are just a feed of different types of alerts or events that are occurring in your environment. And so we kind of bring all of that into one screen. And then in this case, you could click on like SQL injection and get further details on that or whatever it may be. But regardless if it's our native or organic alerts or it's something that's coming from a third-party system, they all show up in one place. And it's actually, it's pretty cool. We'll talk a little more about what you can do with that. So if I get into each one of the modules I just mentioned, compliance, detection, and response, the first thing we have is a compliance manager. And within this module, what we've built out is a maturity modeling tool. So it allows you to build out very quickly, actually, on your own or working with us, the actual maturity of your cybersecurity maturity within your organization, which actually works really well to create boardroom to basement alignment around your strategy and your prioritization of your strategy. We've also built in a risk register, a policy exception manager, so you can declare where policy exceptions occurring in your organization, and what we call a threat profile manager, where you can actually track threats specific to your organization and discuss how you mitigate them and deal with them. And so this is really focused on the compliance side. And one of the visions here was always that typically people dealing with this may not be interacting with network or IT or security analyst on a day-to-day basis. And what we wanted to do is bring all those people to the table, a virtual table, if you will, and help them kind of integrate. So that brings me to the second piece of Nightingale, the second module, if you will, which is our detection manager. Now, our detection manager is comprised of a series of different modules. The first one, and the one we started with, is our network intrusion detection, which is basically Zeek. Not basically, it's 100% Zeek under the covers. And so that's kind of how we've incorporated Zeek, and pretty much everything revolves around Zeek and our platform and what it does. And I'll talk a little more about how we use it. We have deployed two industry-specific protocols, analyzers. One is for HL7 and DICOM. If anybody would like these, we're more than happy to share them. We're trying to figure out how to post them or get them up onto the Zeek community and make them available to people. We also have host intrusion detection, a vulnerability scanner, and we also have deception technology. So with our platform, we do deploy honeypots, which we consider level 1 honeypots. Underlying all of that is an asset management system, and we do asset fingerprinting. Now, this is another area where we've leveraged Zeek, and actually it's pretty interesting. I give a shout out to Patrick Kelly, who you're going to hear from a little later, who's been really, really helpful in helping us figure out how to do this. And the idea here is that as we see traffic on the wire, we're able to actually take steps to fingerprint the assets automatically and then correlate that back to alerts and other information that's happening in the environment. And we've been pretty successful at doing the asset fingerprinting. We've discovered Xboxes and thermostats and medical devices and Teslas. So that's kind of the detection stuff, and I can go much deeper into it. But again, there's still a lot more to cover into what we do. One of the things that we figured out early on is that having all this data is great, but what good is it if you can't take compliance data and put it in the hands of an analyst at the moment of an attack? So for example, if we have a risk within our risk register that's talking to a SQL vulnerability that may have come up somewhere, what we try to do is correlate that back to an asset profile. And so we've created this concept of cross-links where you can create links between any data in the system, whether that's an alert, whether that's a log data from Zeek, whether that's risks or policy exceptions or maturity models or whatever it is. We have the ability to cross-link data. And at first, this may not seem very important, but what it is when you have a situation such as a SQL injection attack, where you have something going on with your domain controller and the analyst is investigating that, it really helps that analyst to know that, hey, there's a risk associated with this, there's a policy exception, there's potentially a threat that's dealing with this. And even though that may be managed by some other part of the organization, it's all in one place and they don't have to jump back and forth between different screens or different areas of their environment to figure out a full picture of what's happening with that asset. Log access, we do natively, so you can get to all the Zeek logs. You can download them and from any of the appliances that we deploy that run Zeek, and those are raw logs. We also correlate logs to events. So if a pulse happens to see an alert and that alert or that notification was raised by Zeek, we automatically get the logs for that. And as you can see on the screen, here's a copy of a connection SSL and HTTP log. Those are coming directly from the Zeek platform that's underlying our platform. So it's actually been pretty powerful, especially in things like forensics, and as you would imagine. And we also have raw logs that get shipped up from endpoints through our host intrusion detection, which gives us a really good picture of, hey, what's happening on the network, and then obviously what's happening on the individual assets on the network. We've actually taken real strong advantage of the Zeek intelligence framework. We have what we call a Sensado intelligence framework with layers on top of that. One of the things we do is whenever we have indicators of compromise, as I mentioned, we're an ISAL, we have servers that connect to Department of Homeland Security. We share threat intelligence with a variety of different organizations. All of that gets translated into IOCs, and we push out all those IOCs to all client appliances. So you never really have to, unless you want to, maintain IOCs on your own. And so we do that through what we call the Sensado intelligence framework, which, as I mentioned, kind of lays over the top of the Zeek intelligence framework. The last module we have is the response manager. And the response manager is a series of different modules that allow you to manage an incident. So this includes things like automated countermeasures or security orchestration. We have a full incident response journal that includes things like incident assets and artifacts that you may come across during an incident investigation. You have the ability to detail who is part of that incident and who responded to it, lessons learned, what you know and don't know, and a pretty visual minute by minute kind of cataloging of what has occurred in that incident. And then you're able to preserve that. So if you ever have a lawsuit, you have to defend yourself, you have a full incident journal that you can refer back to and demonstrate how you handle that incident. And then obviously, because of Zeek and some of the other things we do, the forensic support we have is pretty good. We consider it tactical forensics, meaning we really try to focus on kind of what is happening right here, right now, or what happened over the last 24 to 72 hours. Because we're very kind of containment focused in what we're doing, specifically because of the the kind of industries that we work in. We do have analytics built into the platform. We call it Reveal. So you can drag and drop and do all kinds of fancy stuff. I'll come back to that in a moment and some of the things we're doing around that. I often get asked how long does it take to deploy all of this? As I mentioned, when you deploy, we deploy all our modules at once. If you don't want to use one, you just don't use it. Typically, contractually, we'll tell people that it's about a day to 2 to deploy everything. 97% of our deployments can be done within 4 hours. So that means actually bringing the appliances live, having them connect back to the cloud and be up and running. The fastest attack that we detected from the time we deployed to the time of detection of an attack was 15 minutes, which something tripped one of our honeypots. So we've worked really, really hard on building what we call an over-the-air services framework, which allows us to remotely manage all of the appliances. Once you have them up and running, there's no need for you to update them or do patching or anything like that. We handle all of that for you. You basically just deploy the appliance, turn it on, have it call home, and then you're good to go. This is what Gartner's feedback was. So where are we going? We are going to be deploying honey tokens in the coming couple months. As those of you know, honey tokens allow us to deploy little bits of code or pixels into a document. And then if somebody opens that document, whether it's on your network or anywhere in the world with a network connection, it'll set off an alert. So we're kind of building out the ability to support honey tokens within the platform. We've also added this machine learning capability, which we call Reveal ML, to our analytics platform. And the idea here is that you can bring your own machine learning model. So if you have a machine learning model, or if you're in an environment where you're developing your own machine learning models, you can bring that machine learning model, deploy it, and then use that machine learning against basically the Zeek logs or any of the data that we have in the platform. And so you basically just tell our system to point to your machine learning model, and then the data that's ingested actually gets presented to that machine learning model, and then the output of that model comes back to us and gets reflected in our Reveal analytics dashboards. So we think that's an important thing to do because we don't know everything, and we think there's an opportunity there for a larger community to really enhance cybersecurity analytics, forensics, and threat hunting through machine learning. And what we want to try to do is be a conduit to that. And our vision is ultimately to be using a lot of the Zeek data to help empower that. We also are building out something called Jarvis. Yes, it's from the Iron Man series. And the idea here is to look for the little things that are happening. So there's a lot of data we do get from, example, Zeek, like SSL certificate data, but we also find that our clients a lot of times don't pay attention to it, they overlook it. So Jarvis is really kind of a force multiplier where it's looking for those little things that are falling through the cracks that actually can lead to bigger issues or exploits down the road. And Jarvis will continue to evolve with time and become smarter and smarter. So it's more of an interactive environment. At some point, it may become a bot, but for right now, the vision is to look for the little things that make big returns downstream. We are also now in the process, we're in beta right now, early beta, of deploying and integrating NetDisco. So those of you that don't know what NetDisco is, it's basically a network management tool that allows us to look at SNMP traffic and look at the health and assets on a network. It's typically used for network monitoring. And the idea from what we're looking at is taking NetDisco and marrying that to the traffic that we see through Zeek, right? So we can look at it not just from a cybersecurity perspective, but also integrate network operations and enrich what we're seeing. And we think that the correlation of what NetDisco brings plus what Zeek can do will kind of be pretty interesting, and also broaden that picture when we have security analysts needing to deal with network management or network administrators, help them have kind of a seat at the table, a virtual table again, if you will. We'll cut over the widgets. That's kind of everything I had. So I wanted to be respectful. I know it went pretty quick. It is a very large platform. Hopefully there were some things that either spark ideas for you, or if you have questions or would like to know more, certainly please reach out. You can reach out to the information on the screen or to me directly, which is john.gomez@sensato.co. So Amber, I'm not sure if it's back to you or what you would like to go through next.
It is, and we're up against a break right now. So John, thank you so much for your willingness to participate and present to the Zeek community. We do have a 20-minute break now, and I'll share my screen here in a second to let folks know that we are on a break, because we're not gonna bring down the live stream, and we're not gonna close the channel. We're just gonna leave it up so that everyone can go grab a bite to eat, take a bio break, like all of those type of things, and we will be back online at the top of the hour. So depending on where you're at, or where I'm at on the East Coast, we'll start back at 2. If you're on the West Coast, what is that? 11. So we'll start back at 11 on the West Coast. So yeah, so we're gonna go on a break right now, and we'll see you back here in about 20 minutes. If you'd like to continue the conversation with John, please do so in the Zeek Slack space. It will be ZIE_Sensato. And with that, we'll let you guys go and take a break. And if you need to talk to me, I'm in the main channel there. So you can find me in almost any channel on the Zeek Slack. So we'll see everybody back in about 20 minutes. So thank you so much. We've got about 3 minutes before we start back with our presentations. Up next, we have Tim Larson with the Host Integrity Systems, and we'll have Mateus Valentine with Tensor, and finalizing and rounding out our day will be Patrick Kelly with Critical Path Security. So we'll give it a few more minutes and we'll be kicking this off again. Also, if you aren't familiar with all the different ways that you can connect with the Zeek community, head on over to zeek.org and look under community, and there you'll be able to find all the different ways that you can connect through the mailing list, through Slack, through our subgroups, through there's so many different ways that you'll be able to connect with us. You'll also see the events page where we list our upcoming webinars, Zeek Week, this event, and all of those type of things. We try to keep them updated. Sometimes we get a last minute notification on something. So always watch the events page. If you'd like to download Zeek, please go to our downloads page. Also, if you're looking at the new documentation, take a look at the documentation tab, and you'll see all the new work that Richard Baitlick and others did to update the Zeek documentation. And if you're interested in helping with the documentation, if you're interested in helping with training or testing, or being part of things like the news group or helping plan meetups, please let us know as well. There's plenty of opportunities. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I will bring Tim on in the room. Hey, Tim, welcome to today's Zeek and Enterprise. Thank you so much for your willingness to be part of today's Zeek and Enterprise Day and share and participate with the community. And we have about 30 seconds, so I'm going to let you go ahead and go.
Hello, Amber, this is Tim. You're connecting up with me now?
I sure am.
All right. Well, thank you for the invite. Thank you for all the hard work that you've done to pull this meeting off. I really appreciate that, and ready to get started whenever you give me the thumbs up to do so.
You have the green light and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amber. So I'll bring up a presentation here and get started. All right. Thank you all for joining. My name is Tim Larson. I'm the CEO and president of Host Integrity Systems. We're a company located in Dallas, Texas. It's almost 95 degrees Fahrenheit in Dallas, and summer is upon us. So we've been in business doing consulting work and professional services work for the past 15 years, primarily international work. I lived in Finland for a while, done a lot of work in Munich, done work for in the UK. Here in the US, we've done a lot of work for like Home Depot and Verizon and other companies needing log management solutions, vulnerability management solutions, custom data integration solutions, building data lakes, and so forth. And along the way, we came across, we were in an enterprise conference, and a senior vice president turned to me and said, "Hey, Tim, we have such limited visibility of what is going on with our trusted endpoint agents." And that was about 3.5 years ago. So that's sort of where this story begins. And I began to work on the solution for that, really defining the requirements. And in 2019, Amber put together in Geneva, Switzerland, at the CERN lab, a similar conference where we had the opportunity to come in face to face. It was pre-COVID, of course, and we could talk about our solutions. And this is a continuation of that. Going to do a deep dive in terms of getting into how we use Zeek for hunting certain types of threats. As it says here in the title, Zeek for hunting the malicious code is injected into those trusted agents. And this enterprise that I was working with at that time was saying, we have 10 or 12 agents running on our host endpoint systems, and we have such limited visibility from an asset management perspective. So the wheels began to turn. I couldn't sleep that night. Just really thought this was a real opportunity to dig deep into a solution set. So I'm going to move forward here and sort of speed skate through this. We have the 20 minutes that Amber allowed us, and I appreciate that. So I'll define the current state as a little bit in terms of the challenges, how we addressed it initially from an asset management perspective. If you don't have your assets, or haven't defined your assets and know where they're at, how can you manage them from a security perspective? Do a little bit deeper dive in terms of the technology that we've put together, the solution set, a very quick review of a use case and the capabilities and the types of reports that are needed by the enterprise. So I really am excited about this, passionate. The team has helped. A shout out to a couple of my guys on the work that they've done to put this together so that we can really address the topic at hand. So from an enterprise perspective, let me move me over here. There we go. From an enterprise perspective, operationally, the environment where these agents are located on hosts and the way they're distributed globally, it's a very difficult to maintain the console version control when you have 10 or 12, 15, maybe more consoles that you have to go to manage that. So, there was always this issue also of unplanned outages, the agents dropping, crashing, not reporting back to the console. So to find out where the problems are, how do you, put your finger on the pulse of the problem, it was very time consuming. It was a very manual process, very laborious, inexpensive to do. And another bucket of problems that we learned as we began to dig into this requirement from this enterprise financial institution was the auditors just had, saw the intensity of the manual process that it took to provide meaningful information from an auditing perspective, let alone how to determine, or to provide auditing information of how you're managing the unapproved sources that you might have for depositing agents that are unexpected or untrusted on your environment. And then, as I said in the beginning, the visibility factor. How can you, they were needing help in terms of the challenge of correlating what's going on with the host endpoint agents and what's going on from a network perspective. Is there any correlation between the two as it relates to suspicious activities? And that's where we drill down in from a technical aspect today. Our primary stakeholders, and as the story began, was the security and network operations team. Also very much impacted was the team members, whether they're auditors or cybersecurity asset management team members, of how do I get visibility and provide accountability that we are managing our hosts as it relates to the agents that are running on those hosts without having to log into each one of the consoles themselves. So that was kind of who the stakeholders were, and we'll move forward from there. So the initial design requirements, I'm moving around again. The initial design requirements, let me get started here with a little bit of, hold on, not that color, that color. Okay, the initial design requirements were to basically provide the visibility across the agents in the Windows environment, what agents are running, so forth and so on. Build then a baseline in terms of what is normal, and then provide a bit of a deeper dive into the outliers and look for anomalies in terms of asset management perspective, and then move deeper into, all right, we've discovered, we now have a baseline. How can we use that information to basically look for things that are going to impact our business? Agents that are running the wrong version, agents that are not reporting in excuse me, and not giving that visibility in terms of their potential impact to our business. And then finally, and then not in an order of importance, but from an auditing perspective and from a remediation perspective, how do you provide the auditors with a sense of success that they have captured the right information about what's going on, its state, its health, and then from a remediation perspective, are you giving actionable information to your stakeholders that are going to do the remediation process? Those were the initial requirements that we hit effectively on. So our journey began to provide this visibility, and we built an enterprise solution, and it has the capabilities, as you'll see in some of our reports and screenshots here, assets where you have 150,000 systems and you're running multiple agents on each one of those systems. We looked at from an initial review from the MITRE attack technique, defensive evasion. And we actually outgrew that when we got deeper into it years later, but our strategy and our technology had to expand beyond that, is what I'm trying to say. We wanted to provide effectiveness in terms of, all right, you've got an investment in security tools that are running agents on your endpoints. How effective are those? And give me a single pane of glass, if you will, or a unified dashboard of the effectiveness of those controls, and then provide the policies and so forth. One of the big factors that you'll see from a tool that we've built over the last 10 years is how to improve collaboration between the various stakeholders within an enterprise and globally perspective as well. So we provided a centralized risk management platform. We built the scanning engine using scanning engine technology. We'll talk more about it, to provide a way to gather information fast from all of these 150,000 assets, provide a series of unified dashboards to give stakeholders the ability to come in and get their data the way they need it, to take action on it, provide line of business reports so that the Windows team can see it, or a particular application line of business infrastructure owner can see their business based on topology. And we really we're required to focus on business critical applications. How important, what are the important applications that run my business? What we call follow the green, follow the revenue generators of your business. So quickly going through this, we focused on what we call high visibility targets, business applications. We built a system to create asset groups for each of those business applications. And the assets may be, one application may run on 20 different assets, 20 different IPs, databases, so forth and so on. So they're all, this mapping takes place where you have to bring in all that information so that you're not just looking for the server, but you're looking for the assets associated with that. The technology that we have been very successful with and has been vetted in enterprises for several years is using a disposable agent. So this agent targets those asset groups, does the initial discovery, builds an inventory, the data is sent back to our centralized point, and then for inventorying, and then the monitoring of the health of those agents. And we'll get into a deeper dive of that. So centralized story, baseline, and so forth. Unified reports, you'll see us talk about the thresholds and demo that. And then also we took it a step closer to doing a outlier analysis using LFO, least frequent occurrence, or some people call it stacking. So we're looking for those outliers based on what do we see the least of rather than the most of, because that is a simpler way to gather information. So now we're going to spin down a little bit deeper into our solution that we've created. We're very proud of it. A lot of people have worked hard on this to get this system to provide. Basically, we work from the system is called Unitas, and we call it a risk management platform. We approach things from three perspectives. One is ingestion of information, sort of external, if you will, the data that is coming from the various technologies, whether it's Zeek, in our case, Sysmon or Seracata, or if you're vulnerability management. We're not asking you to get rid of any of those, but we utilize the feeds from those and bring it into our Unitas system. And then from a internal perspective, we bring in asset information. Who owns the asset? Who's the custodian of that asset? What's the risk level? What are the business continuity team prioritize in terms of assets as it's needed to create, the business model that you support? And then we provide a way for users to come in, always, and they're basically the consumers of the data. Do they want to view a unified dashboard as it relates to, a particular topology? I want to see what's going on in the DMZ or my production network and so forth. We build the line of business reports, like I said. We build reports based on BCAs, business critical applications, and we have a built-in ticketing system that can integrate with the clients, or we can provide a sort of a standalone one that is meant mainly for the security team. So that's a quick overview of the three different aspects of the risk framework and the data that we bring into it from left to right. As the data then it gets aggregated, I forgot about more parts of it up here, but that data that we're bringing in, we utilize the VAST platform, visibility across space and time. And Matthias Valentine is going to be speaking after me. I strongly encourage you to look at the merits and undeniable benefits of the VAST solution that Matthias's team there in Germany have put together. Strongly suggest that. So let's go forward a little bit deeper. So now we're going to look at, all right, how do we get asset data into the Unitas, into VAST, and we do that using Eagle Eye, and we'll deeper into that. So Eagle Eye is just another name for is our dissolvable agent. Let me rephrase that. So instead of like a traditional log or traditional vulnerability scanning platform, you have a synchronized connection. So the scanner is synchronized with the asset, and you tie up network, you tie up that system. We take a different approach. We take an approach of using an asynchronous distributed scanning job. So its job is to target an asset group and then basically walk away. Sort of a fire and forget module, if you will, that takes the scan job, it's compressed, it's base 64 encoded, it spans an orphan child PowerShell process that includes an unpacker. When it lands on that host, it opens up that child process to collect the data, to format it, normalize it, all that agent information in terms of what's there, what state it's in, what version is it running per an asset group, so that we can then see over time as a baseline trends of what's going on with those agents that are on that particular host and how they could impact that business critical application. That scan result, if you will, is sent as a JSON file to VAST, as you recall from the previous slide where it's located. The scan job also, from an operational perspective, provides a lot of performance data. How long did the scan take? Did it crash in the middle? Did it send its data like it's supposed to? And then the list goes on from there. So moving forward, just to give you a little bit of an eye chart here of how does this all work. So Unitas Eagle Eye scanning engine fires that asynchronous module to all of the hosts within an asset group. That dissolvable agent lands on the host, it unpacks, it does its data collection of all of the different agents that are there, and it's not limited to 5, but it's just a quick overview. And it then, once that data has all been gathered, that JSON file, there's controls associated with that, of course, in terms of records, it sends it this way. So it goes back to VAS, or it goes to VAS. It's all packaged in, the agent dissolves itself then, and the JSON file sends its way back to VAS, and that's where it's stored. We then have VAS do the analytics and the analysis of the data. It's coming in from all of these different hosts. It builds what we call the unified dashboard of the health of those agents on those trusted agents on those hosts. And that's the purpose of the scanning process. As it says down here, we inventory the agent executables. We look at the stateful information, the health, and the versions, and continually gather that information. We can run this fire and forget module on a scheduled basis where it runs daily or weekly. It's a very effective way from an operational perspective, to gather information in a broad sense from thousands of assets without causing significant, or without causing the network issues of traditional scan engines where they're doing a synchronized connection. So very effective solution that we've created. The type of data that we're gathering in that scan job is, what are the agents that are there? What, build the inventory list of those. What agents did we find that were unexpected, that were not supposed to be there? Which ones didn't we find that were supposed to be there? And we put all this information into a scan reference file. From a stateful information, here's the health, or from a health information, we gather the state information. And then this is just an example of 7, 8 just different states that we collect every time we're doing that scan. And we can then baseline this and look for outliers as it relates to what's there and what's there that's unexpected, if you will. So that's requirement that I talked about in the beginning, the single pane of glass. We pull that all together. So within Unitas, we also build a catalog. And this catalog is where we have the IP addresses, we have the scan information. When is it registered? Is one that we know about, or is it a non-registered, an unexpected one, an untrusted one? What port is it listening to? When did we first discover it? When did we last scan it? And what network is it on? And then we have the capabilities where you can come in and get your data, or I want to look at just the unknown agents running in a particular asset group during a particular time to help you then and within a particular network topology. So you have more actionable information. From a unified dashboard perspective, we provide the security analysts the ability to drill down into actionable information. He doesn't have to do the pivot table routine, pivoting through different files and so forth. We build it, we put in thresholds, red, green, blue, as you can see, just some examples of what capabilities are. You can look at those, here's the 22 assets that came in from the last scan results where we, haven't seen them before. So I would like to know about that. That's the visibility aspect of our solution. And it goes on much deeper than this. So I'm running short on time. From a cybersecurity asset management, we met our requirements, and I'll leave it at that. And the outliers, of course, looking for anomalies is one of those requirements. Moving forward now into where we bring in Zeek. So now we're moving from asset management, but we're now moving into more of a security or threat detection, threat hunting. And we're bringing in the Zeek network logs, and we're bringing in the sysmon logs from those hosts in a near, as log files, bringing it into the Unitas, bringing it into VAS, and again, providing similar type of solution set or the same type of solution set where we're providing dashboards related now to security, we're same line of business reports, so forth and so on. So moving quickly, Amber. All right, so as I just said in the previous slide, it's all about sysmon logs that are coming in from the host that we are having these trusted agents on, and the Zeek tool to provide us the correlation using the connection ID to map the processes between process ID from the host side to the network data, and then so we can then just say, all right, now we see from the host, we see from the network, we have some suspicious connections, we have some suspicious protocols running on standard ports. We need to address that because we also see what's going on from the host perspective. As an example, a use case, as I said, here's some typical examples of non-standard protocol that Zeek would detect on a standard port, and as you can read those. And our goal here from a security perspective is rather unique because it's more than what a MITRE attack under technique or tactic TA 0005 was mainly looking at evasion, people that are turning off a agent and turning it back on again to avoid being detected. Well, it's actually much deeper. It's much more sophisticated in that, and it takes a great deal more awareness from what's going on in the network, because those advanced threats, the APTs, the more sophisticated adversaries out there, they know how to turn things on and off without being detected. But if they're injecting code into your trusted agents, you need Zeek to help define, and Sysmon working together to integrate that awareness and raise that awareness to where you're looking for more suspicious things than just, oh, it's gone, an agent is turned off or it's crashed. Yes, that's useful, but the world is more complex than that. And that's the solution that we really feel like we've hit a home run on. This is summertime in Texas, and a baseball analogy is we want to hit a home run, and that's what we've done. So again, similar architectural design, but this time we're focused on Zeek and Sysmon. We bring Sysmon as just a native tool that's out there. We're bringing in the Sysmon logs. You can read here the type of event ID 3s, that information that we're gathering from Sysmon event ID number 3, the process ID number, the network tuple information in terms of the source IP address, the port, destination IP address, destination port, and of course the process ID. That data goes into a Sysmon log collector. We have a Python program that is run to basically establish communication with Zeek, parses those JSON log files, generates and publishes events, because Zeek thinks in terms of events, so that Zeek then says, oh yeah, I understand, this is what's going on. We use various Zeek scripts that are available to basically analyze that data and look for suspicious activity, so that we're now building a unified dashboard of suspicious events that are occurring on the host as it relates to the agents that are there, those trusted and untrusted agents, and the network information. So now the security analyst has got more context, has got useful information that, rather than here's the health and so forth. It's now a unified content, if you will, for the analyst to use. I won't go into this because I'm getting close on time. Again, just a quick snapshot of business critical applications. We see what's going on the host side, what's going on the network side. Zeek helps us then with the connection ID to map that information together so that we can do a more targeted analysis, a remediation, and so forth. A use case is, from our scan data, we want to look for all agents that are disabled in state number 2. Again, Eagle Eyes brought that information into VAS. We do a query of the VAS information, of the Zeek information that's in VAS. We do a connection, a comparison. We look for services that were being accessed. We look for the processes that were being accessed or utilized. And we then, through our correlation engine, build what we call a watch list ticket inside of the Unitas risk management platform. And so that then an analyst can now look at things that are much more actionable, have a higher priority in terms of their impact awareness, and so forth. A quick snapshot of our correlation, in terms of the events and things like that. We're being accessed. We look for the processes that were being accessed. are utilized, and we then, Amber, a correlation engine, build what we call a watch list ticket inside of the Unitas risk. Say, Amber, am I still live? A higher priority in terms of their impact, awareness, and so here is our ticketing solution, our watch list, I should say, with basically a ticket of what's going.
You're still live. Mateus just entered the room because he's at night. So if you can wrap it up, and I think his audio is coming through. So Mateus, if you can mute yourself. Yep.
Thank you, Matthias. So I'll be wrapping it up here in 3 seconds, maybe 10. But again, a unified dashboard and the types of alerting that would take place. We've met our, provided these key differentiators in terms of single pane of glass, a baseline of what assets are there, a super fast technique to get visibility of our agents in the Windows environment, and the ability to dig deep and catch those malicious code injections into trusted agents. Thank you all very much. If there's an interest in a demo or just more discussion, there's my email address. We have our website where we've got white papers on case studies. We've got our professional services, business consulting documents, and a copy of this presentation. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Tim, thank you so much. For those who would like to continue to hear about host integrity systems or interact with Tim, you can join the Zeek Slack channel, and it's going to be ZIE_host_integrity_systems. So Tim can meet you over there, and you all can continue the conversation. So thanks again, Tim, for all of that. And up next, we have Mateus Valentine with Tensor. And Mateus, let me get you all set up here. 1 second. Oh.
Hey, Matthias.
Hey.
There we go. All right, the floor is all yours, and you're going to get your full 20 minutes. So take it away and tell everybody about Zeek, Tensor, you, and how it all comes together in support of Zeek.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. I'm here today to tell you about our open security analytics platform, which Zeek plays an integral role in. And before we start, I kind of want to go back 6 years when Gartner coined the term the SOC visibility triad. And basically, we're still working in the industry with these 3 major components to protect ourselves: the SIM, or the log as a proxy for log analysis, then the NDR side for the network-based monitoring and detection, and the EDR side for the endpoint side. And Zeek obviously now being in the NDR side as also commercialized by Qualite. There's some fundamental issues with scaling this for effective threat detection. And what's really missing is the context around the data that is being processed, especially in the SIM. Like the logs are lacking context about the internals of the infrastructure. And we call this the endogenous context, because the internal context or the endo context can be technically mined from a lot of the telemetry that we have on the network on the endpoint side. That's everything that's activity in the infrastructure. And then we have the other type of context, the external context, or the exogenous, in the sense we take it from the outside world, in this case, anything that describes a threat landscape out there, and we bring it in to see whether it's relevant to us. And that is basically the threat intelligence in all its commercial ways and flavors we consume it nowadays. And those 2 types of context are they're hard to kind of combine in traditional SIM environments. The signal to noise ratio is pretty poor with an out of the box SIM. It doesn't scale very well, and it's pretty costly unless, and on top of that, you have to usually have a couple of FTEs that run the thing, tune it, and so forth. So as the world is moving towards raw processing of telemetry, this is possible. It's effective, but it's not efficient. And basically, that's what we're trying to improve. We're trying to combine a solution where we have log analysis, threat detection combined with a strong focus on the surrounding context of the data. So that's pretty abstract, but it's going to get concrete in just a little bit. We, in this life cycle of detection and investigation and response, we are kind of in that part here, detection and investigation. And for the detection side, we need visibility first. If we don't see anything, we cannot detect anything. And basically downstream of this is the investigation, the insight generator. And we are sitting really there at the intersection. Upstream, so to say, in terms of the data flow, is Zeek, fundamentally. After all, Vern Paxton was my professor at Berkeley. I was his first PhD student, so I enjoyed pretty much 10 years hanging out with him as the Zeek founder and creator. And so I'm naturally biased, I would say. And I got to appreciate the value. So when it comes to the ratio of high quality telemetry on the network side, Zeek is still the go-to monitor. Nowadays, we are also supporting Suricata as another source for metadata. And in that sense, we're kind of agnostic to it because the sort of telemetry that the system has been designed for is high volume typically. And we're talking 50,000 events per second just fine. This is basically what we see in a 10 gig link deployment. And the goal here is to record that and provide detection on top of it. This obviously with a constrained resource environment, you have to rotate out old data quickly. So this is the sort of high volume telemetry that is tough to scale with a SIM. And if you have the budget, you can do it. But it requires a lot of horsepowers, and that's there's additional use cases that are very hard to implement that we provide out of the box. The other type of data is threat intelligence, and basically that's tactical threat intelligence. But Tensier itself is developing, morphing into a platform of execution of arbitrary security content. It's not just hey, we'll do a point match of a tactical IOC, but we have experimental support for executing Sigma rules, for example. And basically this is, the goal is there to support also more stateful types of analysis. On the inside side, this is how you would interact with the system. Basically, you manually do it as an analyst, as a threat hunter, but also integration into a SOAR or a case management tool. And when we say open security analytics, we have a special meaning of what the term open means here. What we're really trying to bring is what we're trying to do is bring two types of data together, the telemetry and the threat data, and offer new capabilities as we build the intersection of the two. And open here means that we appreciate the open source ecosystem. Our technology itself is both open source and open core. And we have two projects that I'm going to present in a little bit that actually reflect that heritage. We, in that sense, fit very naturally into the ecosystem that's already in place at high-end SOCs that leverage open source technology. So for example, on the network side, we do support Zeek and Suricata, but also the higher volume raw formats such as NetFlow and PCAP. And on the endpoint side, Sysmon is working, and we are building out our integrations into other raw telemetry data sources. That, on the other hand, we have the threat data, which typically comes managed by some provider. SOCs often use some sort of TIP or a CTI platform, threat intelligence platform. And over here in Europe, MISP and OpenCTI now recently gained a lot of traction as a unified way to subscribe to your feeds and also do automated sharing based on different TLP levels. That one we're tapping into natively and subscribing to the stream of events and tactical IOCs, and they will automatically be used for detection. So the two types of detection that we're enabling are live detection and retro detection. The live detection is essentially bringing the telemetry to the threat data in the same way like a firewall does it, but with two different salient differences. One, it's fundamentally open. You control the threat data that's being matched on. And B, it works on arbitrary data, not just packet data. It works on endpoint data. It works on your Zeek logs. It works on your Zeek SMTP logs if you have, for example, file hashes that you want to match on special indicators. Like, that's not something you can configure with a firewall. But we've built a system that essentially is very high throughput and low overhead, where you can have billions of tactical indicators in probabilistic data structures and match on them as they fly by, and thereby model a variety of data feeds maybe that you're subscribing to, and then also performing specific action on them. I'll show you later how to do that. The retro detection is the kind of automation of what a SIM interaction would look like, as we're basically subscribing to the threat data with each new indicator or event or item, threat intelligence item. We're going back in time and trying to figure out, has that occurred already? It's basically a translation of threat intelligence into searches in an automated and structured way that here also leverages the strong type system of VAST and also of Zeek specifically. Where this comes as a huge advantage here, to have the ability to be type specific and distinguish, for example, URLs from domains and other things that are not just strings. So we have the way we position our portfolios with two tools. One is VAST, which is the data plane, and the other is Threat Bus, which is the control plane for a SOC. And each of these expose different capabilities that are useful in combination and enable a variety of different use cases. And so, for example, VAST is just as a lightweight but high performance SIM is one use case. But then basically we're adding more advanced use cases where we mine the telemetry data to provide additional use cases such as asset tracking, anomaly detection. And there's a fundamental aspect of pivoting in between the different types of data, which we've also presented at Zuricon 2019. ThreatBus itself is a fully open source threat intelligence broker. It enables a federated way of controlling the different security tools and especially instrumentalizing threat data for detection. Basically, you can subscribe to specific types of indicators and trigger automated response. So for us, this is the future of SOAR, where basically you no longer have a central piece in the middle that calls out through a bunch of API calls, but instead lives distributed, piggybacks on existing authenticated message brokers such as Kafka or RabbitMQ, and leverages existing authenticated infrastructure in a large-scale distributed SOC. That's basically the vision behind ThreatBus, and we are actively talking with the OCA to push forward a more broader use here. So to go back a bit more to the kind of down-to-earth, less conceptual approach here, the concrete use cases that we are dealing with on a daily basis. On the left-hand side, the ones we're currently supporting, and on the right-hand side, stuff we're developing that I'll show some previews on. So on the threat hunting side, we have really VAST as the threat, as our database for telemetry. And we have a command line interface and we have a web interface. So VAST is open core, meaning it's licensed as a BSD3 style license, the core, but there's some commercial extensions out there that prevent us from getting AWS. For example, the web front end is not in the open source offering. But basically that's if you're fine without it, that's a complete additional benefit, so to say. But it has some nice features, and not quite sure how visible it is here, but basically what we're trying to give you is a view on the log that's contextualizing. And we earlier talked about this endo and this exto context, and basically this is what you get here. You get both the external ability to quickly go out to virus total and your other threat APIs. And on the other hand, also, we're leveraging VAST's asset and inventory database to give you the internal context for the log data that you may missing, such as passive DNS data, and especially giving that to you in a time-sliced view. So when you go back to logs 6 months ago, you get actually the inventory from 6 months ago. There's the live detection use case, which I mentioned earlier, and this is really just a high-performance ingest path. So from it requires good engineering, but it's not rocket science conceptually. You just have to parallelize processing of lots of millions of indicators. And the architecture of VAST does this kind of in a neat way because it internally uses the actor model and it scales beautifully. You can pretty much connect to these different sort of matcher components, and you can run them and configure them differently based on different criticality, for example, to trigger automated responses and use the sightings from these matches to do different responses to sinkhole hosts or to just maybe bump a sighting counter in your threat intelligence platform. And this is really, this is out of the box. We do have a partnership with PulseDive, which I want to shout out here. And actually, if you're interested in matching the full feed from PulseDive live and respectively, we bundle that together. The retro detection is the other direction. Here we have a new indicator and go back in time. And this is where ThreatBus comes into play. ThreatBus really is the broker that subscribes the threat intelligence, lifts it into a unified standard called STIX, which is standard for, which has a variety of different object models. And then, ThreatBus then converts it into queries. Or we also have a Zeek integration. Like we can sync basically your MISP or your OpenCTI with Zeek in real time through ThreatBus. So whenever you add a new alien wall connector or whatever that dumps new indicators in your tip, you get them in real time in Zeek through ThreatBus. And this is basically, again, ThreatBus here. You can orchestrate your different tools very effectively with this publish, subscribes, loosely coupled message broker, naturally inspired by Zeek's broker, which actually I built the second version after John built the first version. So there's a very natural correlation here. You can kind of extend this model. I'm not going to go into the different advanced use cases. Maybe what's interesting is the asset tracking part that I want to still focus on a little bit. Basically, Zeek has so rich telemetry that it's very easy, and we've seen this in past calls here as well in the same talk. It's very easy to build a passive inventory without further work. The unique difference here to other approaches that we have is that we have a time-sliced inventory for retro correlation. This means when you go 3 months back, you get the inventory from 3 months back. And not the one that's current right now, because especially as we're seeing that this dwell time of the attackers is expanding over 6 months as SolarWinds, for example, we really need to be able to work with the accurate representation of the network from the time of the alert. And the lag of threat intelligence is so much behind nowadays that there is a critical need for this time-bound context. Yeah, basically, this is the bread and butter in a fast-forward mode. There's different types of scenarios where you would deploy it. Mostly in a large-scale SOC or MSSP MDR context is where you would deploy it. The sort of smaller medium companies are a bit out of focus. It's a bit raw technology, but also high performance as a result requires a bit of integration. So basically the integration into a large enterprise SOC or also from an MSSP is as one of our customers who built a system similar to that. here is having an appliance that runs a network monitor, in this case Zeek or Corelight, that dumps the data into VAST, and yeah, it can be accessed by the SOC analyst through web UI or the command line. And Threat-Bus is the automated control plane for the threat data that here can connect in the publish subscribe mode to threat intelligence and takes these sightings and pushes it back to maybe a less high volume database like a SIM, where you collect maybe just the sightings or just the alerts, but not the 50,000 to 100,000 events per second that will blow it up. There's actually an interesting article from Anton Chubakin a couple of years back where he cites this dual SIM approach as being quite effective and up to 90% cost reduction. So if you're struggling with your SIM costs, you definitely want to consider splitting out your high volume telemetry into a platform that's more suitable for it. Yeah, basically, that's it in a nutshell. What we're trying to do is push down the time from breach to detection by automating it in live and in retrospective detection, and then giving you the tools for effective and fast investigation to save you time and money. That's it from my side. Happy to answer any questions in the Slack channel. We also have our own Slack, slack.tenzio.com. Join our community. We're just building it out. We're just starting a bit more marketing. It's been pretty much under the radar for the past couple of years. Always feel free to reach out to me directly. Yeah, we are also in the Zeek Slack, so you'll find us if you want to. Thanks for the opportunity, and yeah, have a good day.
Matthias, thank you so much for your presentation. And again, as you mentioned, you'll be in the Slack channel. It's the ZIE_Tenzor. But in the main Slack channel too, you're a very active member of the community. And so I think if people just find your nick there, they can find you almost anywhere in any of the Slack channels. So again, thank you so much for participating, and hopefully people will join you for some more conversation. Thanks for staying up late to do this.
Thank you, Amber. It's a pleasure.
All right, up next, we have Patrick Kelly. Patrick is also a active member in the community, and Patrick is with Critical Path Security. So Patrick, with that, the floor is yours.
Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well today. I don't know if you're like me, but these speakers that we've been able to see and some of the topics that they've covered and the insight they've given has been absolutely phenomenal. If you're ever going to be part of a Zeek day, you know, for especially the first time out, and I think this has been one of those situations that has been truly remarkable, and it's been an honor to be here. I'm going to figure out how to do a quick little present so we can just talk about some things. All right, let's give this a go. So here's the thing. I'm going to spend very little time talking about exactly what we're doing at Critical Path Security. I appreciate you know, the opportunity to speak to that, but at the same time, we've been seeing some things, and I would like to give some insight into ways that you could potentially protect your organization and do some really cool stuff with Zeek, and that I think really hasn't been used to the full capabilities that it could in most environments. So this is me. I'm not going to do a bio slide. If you want to know more about me, you can go to LinkedIn, you can send me an email, but really this is about all of you, and I don't want to spend my time talking about me. So here's the thing. What we found, especially during the pandemic, is there are a lot of shifts in organizations. Things were pushed straight to the border. We saw a large increase in RDP connections that you could hit straight from the internet that weren't there previously. We were seeing kind of files move around in different ways as we tried to cope with going from a 5% remote workforce to a 95% remote workforce, right? So the great thing about Zeek is that, you know, it really is sort of the streaming Swiss Army knife of let's see everything that's going on our network. And then when we started seeing the integration of cloud and bringing in AWS and GCP and Azure, and the ability to do some of the monitoring in those spaces too, thought this was a really great opportunity to dive just a little bit deeper. But at the end of the day, what we found out is that not all of the assets were treated equally, right? Some things had a couple of years of security and controls and endpoints and things like that that were baked into it. Fast forward, get everything to the edge, shake up our infrastructure, keep the business alive, and change control and processes largely went out the window in a lot of different places. So as I mentioned, right, change control, what's that? Shadow IT became bigger than it was before, where we're seeing internal systems getting pushed out, largely because there just wasn't enough bandwidth available to the org to have all of the remote workers connect into the environment. So it became okay, where can we put this so that they can still keep working? And obviously we've seen that ransomware has moved a whole lot quicker than DAT files. And what Matthias mentioned, a moment ago is pretty true that, our threat intelligence feeds and the outside indicators that we get, largely they're very slow. And if we're trying to solve these sort of problems that way, it gets a little dicey. And we all know that things are becoming, more encrypted. We're seeing DNS over HTTPS. We're seeing a lot of things baked into SSL flows. And sometimes when you're doing an IR or you're trying to figure out how things worked and how you got to a point, it can be very tough to find all of these things. But many of us know in Zeek, that I've been here for a long time, that there's a lot of different places that you can look to find these indicators to help move your organization from crisis mode into a recovery mode. Instead of looking at an SSL flow, you might be able to pull some things out of DNS. Or in this case, after a flow has come across an SSL, you may be able to spot a file moving across the network that you haven't seen before. So assets without EDR, assets without tracking became a significant issue over the last year and a half, where things are getting spun up. We're launching new entities off of templates in VMware. We're throwing stuff into our Azure VPCs, our Amazon VPCs, and we're not really tracking exactly what's going on because the business is demanding that we do so. So kind of like, where do we go with this, right? For me, we found an enormous amount of data and value in extracting files directly off the wire, and not just pulling the files out and kind of trying to cut and carve them in Wireshark, but truly automating this process of, we've seen this file, we've never seen it before, we want to blow it up, we want a PCAP, we want some sort of URI analysis done on it, we want to be able to pull that flow out and really understand what happened. We want to do virus total analysis against every contributing and participating EDR platform, because as we all know, not some of the things that we see in our environments may not get picked up by a Silence or a SentinelOne or any of these other things. So having the ability to pull this data out, get it into and get that hash into virus total and understand kind of what was going on, and correlate it right back to that network flow was super important. And now I'm going to go through a bit of a rudimentary way of getting this done. I'm going to give you some hints, things that we've seen so you can get there quicker. This is something that we provide as a service, but again, I know some are listening to this today and you may not have it in the budget. So I just want to get you to the point of maybe you can start to do some of this yourself. So as we all know, right, Zeek latest rev, you always want to be on the latest rev. The changes that are coming are phenomenal. They're huge improvements from, way back when I began in 1.5 all the way up to where we are today. So you want to make sure you stay current. There's really no better package to do file extraction with than HOSMs. As I used to say as I say in Star Wars, this is the way. So as we move forward, right, you can use a bunch of different things to do this. You can use Strelka, you can use Cuckoo Sandbox. There's a bunch of different ways you can go. We're going to focus on Cuckoo on this one, just because I found it to be the quickest way. You get the most results out of it. You can manipulate it and get it, into particular environments that you want, such as, using VirtualBox straight out. You can choose a bunch of different OSs that fit your organization and maybe some custom builds that you're doing and understand where it works. We've done it with Splunk and Elk, but it really depends on your wallet. For us, when we were looking at 10,000, 20,000 artifacts, in one shot, you're gonna have limited mileage for the budget on Splunk unless you have sort of an all-you-can-eat plan. So we're gonna focus on getting it into Elk and then pull the data back out. So super simple, right? Grab Zeek, extract, push. The thing I want to mention most is that you need to have some storage that needs to be dedicated. When we worked with orgs that have tried to do this themselves and we've gone in, they've kind of sent all of the files into one single partition in their environments and they end up blowing the place up. File extraction is something that you want to pay close attention to. I know that you can go in and in the profile and the config, you can choose everything. But you're not going to be able to really go through all of that to begin with, and you're going to get a ton of like SSL certificates and things like that. So our advice has always been start with PE, start adding other things in and get a feel for what your capacity is and what you can do with it, what kind of sense you can make of it. You're going to need to have some sort of watcher feeder. We were able to build ours out in Python, and it's fairly robust. It does a really great job. Pulling those files, getting them over into Cuckoo, tagging it properly, getting everything sent over the way it needs to be done, maintaining what flow it came out of Zeek, so that way we can do that correlation back later. And then you're gonna have to do some cleanup. Sometimes if you're pushing remotely, a file may make it to the other side. Sometimes you may need to go back and just grab what's been extracted and get it out. And obviously, as Zeek churns and pulls more files out, if you're not cleaning up that repo of documents and files that are coming in, you're going to have some operational issues pretty quickly, especially at 100 gigabit. So on this side, right, again, we're sticking with Cuckoo. To us, of the different options that were there, we found this one to be the most deep and robust in giving us all the information that we wanted to see. We wanted PCAPs, we wanted to be able to hold that file, we wanted all the hash values, we wanted to pushes the virus total. There's a bunch of different things that we wanted to break out of that and choose operating systems that we would send things to without having to kind of build everything. Critical Path is a relatively small shop. I think we're about 15 people just about right now and 100% bootstrapped. So if you're kind of like us and you had to be really scrappy about getting somewhere, you get the most you can out of the tools. Now, when you're doing remote, something I want to mention that a lot of people miss is that the API in Cuckoo, when you try to do it over SSL, it gets a little bit grimy and it passes or fails, and it's not the most stable thing I've seen. So using something like Nginx in front of it to do a proxy so you can handle that SSL flow straight in, so it saves a lot of time. Something else that we noticed is that when we got some very, very interesting artifacts in, we did not want that to be routed straight out our IP address, just where we are. Some of the things we're blowing up and looking at are C2. Some of these are related to threat actors that haven't been discovered, or we haven't really broken down exactly who they are. So we do proxy our traffic out through a couple different ways to basically obscure where it's coming from. And then you're going to have a lot of data, and you're going to have a ton of information that you're going to have to go through. So having a good log forwarder in place to move that out to where you can make some sort of actionable sense out of it is going to be super important. Now, some lessons learned on VirtualBox. When you go look at the normal how-tos, when you're extracting data out of Zeek and then pushing over analysis, they're not going to break down for you the fact that it's going to run as a single process. And even if you have 10, 15, 20 machines, by default, it's going to run as a single process. We found that to be a huge bottleneck, and it would delay our being able to do analysis by quite a amount of time. So, we recommend at least starting at 10. We are at much higher than that now. Processes, you can break them out by doing a Cuckoo process and then the numerical value that you want to associate to it. I recommend one process per environment that you're going to be sending the data off to. So if you've got 10 workers that are in VirtualBox, 10 processes are going to help. Now with VirtualBox, you're going to get there quicker and cheaper and easier than building out a full VMware architecture, you do have some stability issues, especially in the earlier version. The most recent version has been really great. You can run it for 60, 90, 120 days without any issues. But we have some things, Watchdog, and some things that are looking for when processes fall over, kind of bring those back to life and do those things very quickly. Now, as I mentioned, as you get the logs out, you can do the Elasticsearch way, you can do the Splunk way. We very much went towards the Elasticsearch side because it just gave us a greater ability to bring in terabytes of Zeek data, carve these files, make actionable decisions on them, and then get that data back in so that we were still in the same flows and we could correlate this and put things back together. Again, you can do this in Splunk. We actually have a Zeek's full Splunk app that has field extraction built into it. If you would like to have a copy of that, reach out. Right now, it covers every single part of protocol, the intel, lookups, all the things. So you have to do something with it when you get the data out, right? So when you're sending it off to a log parser, here's the thing about Cuckoo. It doesn't all go to one log. The data is broken out into subfolders, into their own JSON that breaks down every little minute detail of what's happened in that file. So you're going to need to build some sort of process in Python, and we can assist with some of these things to get that data out, what's most meaningful to you, which could be what's its score, did it fire an EGR, was it found in VirusTotal, and what did that look like when it came back across. Logstash provides some really amazing capabilities in going in and kind of cutting and filtering this data and getting it the way you need it to go. And again, focusing on Elastic away from Splunk, because you can do this for free. Kibana really is the easiest way for you to get there and be able to understand what you're looking at. So at the end of the day, if you have a platform similar to ours, it's going to look a little bit like this. You've got your Zeek network flows. You've got some threat intel that's being married up when you do the file extraction. You might want to do some sentiment analysis against the files in DLP, but you can take all of these sources and glue them together in a meaningful way where you can go from a VirusTotal or Yara alert and then pull that entire network flow out and start making really good decisions in a hurry. And then obviously, building in your ticket tracker, as mentioned before with the previous person. So a lot of questions have been, why should I do this? Why do I care? I mean, I've got EDR, I've got 2 EDRs, I've got stuff at the border. Why? For us, we found some very interesting artifacts, and we also had a chance to, stop or at least slow down an international ransomware syndicate with data that we pulled out of this, which was a lot of fun to be a part of. But here's what you get, right? Indicators of compromise that you're typically not going to see until it's over. Like, unless you're going to go back and replay traffic against AV, or if you have every single detection, behavioral detection built and put together, there are some things you're just not going to get to proactively, or you're not going to get there as quick as you need to. The other is that you can automate these alerts back out. So even if your EDR misses it, you have some coverage. Or if things have been deployed into the org and you've not been told that we're deploying, you can have some sort of coverage that you can lock into your asset tracking. We've seen a lot of remote access tools on the network this way. Tools that didn't quite beacon, they didn't feel, they didn't fall exactly into a behavioral detection. They were, allowed by the EDR. But as we start extracting these things out and we start comparing them against its behavior and all of the badness that's been looked at on the internet, you start to find some things that you would have missed before. When we start moving into an incident response case, one of the biggest challenges we have is, we need all the data, and we need to be able to provide that as quickly as we can to law enforcement, to FBI, to Secret Service, to whoever's working with us. Being able to have that volatile memory analysis, the full PCAP for them to take a look at as you're going through this case, super important. We've also found, payloads that have not been seen before. doing it this way. And we've been able to pull some exploits out that have not been seen before and go through the responsible disclosure process. So again, some really great ways to use Zeek to pull these other little bits out to take it a little bit further. And then again, if you set this up properly, there's a direct correlation back to your Zeek network flows. So you can go and find this, correlate it straight out, and then break that out to see everywhere else it might have gone. So in our case, we woke up one morning to find out that, we had someone in the community that had been pulling our threat intelligence. We had been pushing some hash files or some hash values that had not been seen yet. And then we had an organization that was working very closely to Evil Corp and through this particular ransomware group that wanted to use the information that we had on hand to do something a little more meaningful and get in the middle of a case. We didn't expect that to happen. So pretty cool when you're just building something and you get pulled into something like this. So let's go to the last bits. Our contributions back to the community are very important to us. If it wasn't for Zeek and it being open source, if it wasn't for the community, if it wasn't for the great groups we get to work with, such as Sensato, which is an amazing group. If you're working in healthcare, if you're working in that space, John and that team are incredible, and we've really enjoyed working with groups like that. But we wanted to give something back. So we are doing full threat intelligence feeds. They're updated on the hour. We're about to go to a half hour. We have a great relationship with Dave Kennedy's Binary Defense, so you're going to get that threat intelligence straight out. Our own internal threat intelligence that we're building out from things that we're seeing, all the abuse CH, everything that goes around it. 100% free, no charge, already formatted in Zeek. So you can just run a simple setup script that we have sitting in the GitHub repo, and immediately you can start bringing some of this intelligence back into the environment. Now, what we do, manage security operations centers that are based on Zeek, which has been great because we're finding things that are really hard to find in platforms like Alien Vault, things that you can find in things like Security Onion, which is cool. So hat tip to those guys over there. Custom analyzers, such as some of the things that we built with Sensato, custom detections, and then full-scale enterprise Zeek deployment. So we're very comfortable in the 100 gigabit, 200 gigabit, full stack environments, remote data centers, and then bringing all that data back and using it either against the Splunk app that we've built for our customers or going into Elasticsearch. So I want to close out with some successes that we've had with Zeek and ways that we have used it to do things outside of this normal enterprise environment. We did use Zeek to help prevent COVID-19 attacks on emergency room COVID care centers and supply chain. And we are super thrilled that Elastic wrote an article, put that together. So feel free to go look. We also use data that we found in Zeek when we correlated it against data we pull from other sources that prevented a couple mass casualty, mass shooting events. So I don't know if you've looked at your data that way, but if you go and look on NBC, there's some videos that we did with the reveal and with some other teams regarding El Paso and some other things we were to get in front of. So there is data that you'll actually find in here and syslog flows from controls, social media, when you start gluing it together that you could actually prevent loss of life. And then for those that are kind of new to Zeek and wondering kind of how to make it fit in, we've done some articles with Blueprint. They're part of the Motley Fool group that explain the value of doing this, why you should do it, and what you can do from there. So again, I want to make sure we follow another time. I want to be very respectful to the entire team and those that are putting this together. We would love to help you in any way we can. We hope that this is kind of an example of something you can go and do down the road if you find that there's going to be some value. If there's anything that we can do to assist you in your environment, feel free to reach out, and we would love to work with you. Again, thank you. It's been an honor to be here today.
Patrick, thank you so much for participating in today's event. And as always, anything that you think we should be doing, please let us know. You're you and your team are, welcome participants in the community, and we appreciate all that you contribute back.
Thank you, Amber. We love working with you as well.
Awesome. And with that, Patrick, I'm going to share my screen if you want to stop sharing yours.
There you go.
Thank you much. Let's see here. And with Patrick's talk, that concludes our Zeek and Enterprise Day. We'd like to thank Security Onion Solutions, NCC Group / Fox IT, Corelight, Sensato, Host Integrity Systems, Tensor, and Critical Path Security for taking part in our first Zeek and Enterprise Day. We will be trimming up the video and breaking it into the individual talks and putting those back out on both YouTube and the website when we stand up the Zeek and Enterprise page. If there's anything that any questions that you may have for any of the participants, head on over to the Zeek Slack channel, and any of the channels that start with the ZIE were today's channels. We'll keep them up for about a week before we archive them, and we'll definitely give everyone warning before we archive those. So I hope the conversations continue, and maybe some great ideas are going to come out of today. If you're a participant who is watching this live stream today and you're thinking, man, I wish my company would have, saw the announcements or participated in this. You can reach me in the Zeek Slack channel. You can reach me on the Zeek mailing list. You can reach me at akgrainer at zeek.org. There's many ways that you can reach out. Let me know that you want to participate in the next Zeek and Enterprise Day, so we'll get it started. We're trying to limit these to no longer than 4 hours. It's easy to give time back, but we don't want to take time away from folks. So keep that in mind, and keep a lookout for the trimmed up video from today, and also keep a lookout for the Zeek and Enterprise page when we stand it up. Thanks again, everybody, and hope to see you online again soon.